On the day he sets out to celebrate his 15th wedding anniversary, Noah's life goes up in flames, both literally and metaphorically. His wife's betrayal, public humiliation in front of the entire town, a catastrophe too perfectly timed to be coincidence. And suddenly, everything he built begins to collapse. Noah could have given up, could have disappeared, but instead, he does what he does best, begins sifting through the wreckage. Only this time, his target isn't a historic building. It's an entire system of lies, power, and corruption, with a charismatic mayor at its core and a darkness buried deep beneath the charm. Brick by brick, clue by clue, Noah prepares the perfect revenge, precise, calculated, and unforgiving. They thought they had burned him to the ground. They were wrong. Now, he's building something new, and this time, it's engineered to collapse. Greetings, my dear viewer. Please tell me which city and country you're watching this video from. Maybe you're watching me from a small town or a gigantic metropolis. Write about it. Make sure to subscribe to my channel and share this video with your friends. It will make me very happy. Let's get started. Noah. Sanders let his fingers drift along the crumbling lines between the bricks of the Carson Theater, each groove echoing decades of neglect. At 46, he'd made a name for himself as the man who resurrected relics. But this place, this forgotten gem, could be the masterpiece of his restoration career. Noah had told Melissa Lawson, the city's heritage officer, that the Carson would become Dark Hollow's crown jewel. "It looks worse than it is," Melissa had said with a reassuring grin. "That's why we brought you in. When your firm says something's fixable, people believe it." Noah had earned that reputation. 15 years of engineering precision and 10 more running cornerstone restoration had made sure of that. He was a man who believed in what could endure: buildings, promises, people. His life, like his work, was crafted with care and intention. "Brandon calls you a miracle man," Melissa added with a knowing smile. Noah's jaw flexed slightly at the name, Brandon Davis, the city's magnetic mayor. They'd once been inseparable, childhood friends with dirt-streaked faces and dreams shaped on baseball diamonds. Now, Brandon had a congressional campaign in his sights, and the Carson was meant to be his legacy project. "Speaking of Brandon," Noah said, glancing at his watch, "I need to run. 15-year anniversary tonight. Victoria's waiting." Melissa chuckled, her laughter ringing through the quiet auditorium. "Lucky you. Travis and I barely made it past 6. What's your secret?" "Trust," Noah replied, "and remembering you're lucky every single day." His truck hummed along familiar streets as he drove toward Anastasia's, the riverside restaurant where he'd once gone down on one knee. On paper, his life was flawless. A thriving business, a beautiful wife, the respect of a town that admired him, and 2 bright 13-year-old twins. But lately, the facade had begun to tremble. Victoria's sudden interest in fitness, her lingering hours at the boutique long past closing, the hushed phone calls that ended when he entered the room, messages she guarded with a lock screen. Noah had dismissed it all, made excuses, chose not to see. The man who could spot structural faults with a glance refused to acknowledge the cracks in his own marriage. But tonight was his turning point. He'd booked their table, ordered her favorite flowers, even arranged for the same violinist who'd played the night he proposed. He was ready to mend what was unraveling. It's what he did. Noah Sanders fixed things. When he pulled into Anastasia's, he noticed the unusual bustle. Thursdays were typically quiet. Then he saw Brandon's sleek SUV, and next to it, Dylan's polished BMW, Victoria's brother. Something felt off. Inside, the hostess stiffened as he approached. "Mr. Sanders, you weren't expected just yet," she said, her voice uncertain. "Reservation for 2 at 7, Noah said, brows knitting. Her eyes flicked toward the private dining room. "It's just that your wife's already here." He caught a familiar laugh, Victoria's voice drifting from behind a half-closed door. "She's in there?" he asked, already heading that way. Wait, sir, I don't think. But Noah had already pushed through. He stopped in his tracks. The river room sparkled with lights and whispered chatter. Familiar faces filled the space, clients, neighbors, friends. And in the center, glowing in a bold red dress he'd never seen, sat Victoria. She was radiant, magnetic, and completely at ease. Beside her lounged Brandon, hand resting just a little too comfortably near hers. For a moment, no one noticed Noah standing there, until Dylan leaned in, whispering something into his sister's ear. Her expression faltered, just slightly, before she rose with theatrical poise, glass in hand. She tapped it gently, drawing silence. "Now that everyone's here," she said, avoiding Noah's gaze with clinical precision, "I have something to share. Most of you know Anastasia's hold special memories for me. It's where Noah proposed, 15 years ago." Laughter rippled around the room, soft, nostalgic. "But tonight," she continued, her tone turning cold and deliberate, "I'm celebrating a new chapter. I'm raising a glass to my freedom. I'm toasting the end of my marriage, to a man who stopped being a partner long ago." The room froze. Gasps flared. Some laughed nervously, unsure how to react. For Noah, it felt like the ground had been ripped from beneath him, the same sickening lurch he'd felt when a century-old floor collapsed beneath his feet on a job site. "What the hell is this?" he asked, voice sharp, cutting through the stunned hush. Every head turned. Some looked away. Others stared, wide-eyed. Dylan was suddenly beside him, gripping his shoulder. "Don't cause a scene," he warned, voice low. Noah shrugged him off, but Dylan shoved him hard. Noah stumbled, crashing into a waiter carrying a sizzling tray of flaming cheese. The tray flew skyward. Fire, alcohol, and molten cheese rained down. Then his jacket caught fire. A shriek shattered the calm. The floor pitched beneath Noah's feet as he fought to extinguish the flames devouring his sleeve. Blinding pain followed when his head struck the jagged corner of a nearby table. Moments later, as awareness crept back in, an unnatural stillness filled the room. All eyes were fixed beyond him, every face locked in terror. Staggering, disoriented, Noah turned toward whatever had paralyzed the room. Mounted high on the rear wall was a lavish, antique mirror, an opulent relic he'd salvaged years ago from the charred remains of the Carson Theater and gifted to Anastasia's. Its polished surface now reflected the entire unfolding scene with merciless precision. There, Brandon's hand intertwined with Victoria's, a betrayal laid bare. And Dylan watched with the satisfaction of a man who had orchestrated every move. To the side stood Aiden and Austin, not shocked, but complicit. They had known. They had watched. In the edge of the mirror's frame, nearly out of sight, a projection screen cast a relentless stream of images. Victoria and Brandon together, in secret and in intimacy. Months of deceit caught in frame. This wasn't a spontaneous revelation. It was a calculated spectacle meant to humiliate Noah completely. When Noah caught sight of his own reflection, burned skin, eyes alight with betrayal, something inside him gave way. The final beam of his world buckled, and everything collapsed. But from the debris, a quiet resolve emerged. He wouldn't waste time rebuilding the wreckage. He would construct something entirely new, and those responsible would come to understand. The man who knew buildings down to their bones also knew exactly where to strike to bring them crashing down. The emergency room diagnosis was blunt: concussion and second-degree burns. But Noah saw it differently. This was the beginning. "You're lucky," Dr. Samantha Willis murmured, gently smoothing ointment over the raw red skin of his arm and cheek. "Another few minutes, and we'd be talking skin grafts." Noah didn't feel lucky. Sitting alone in a cold treatment bay at Dark Hollow Memorial, he dissected the night's events with the methodical detachment of an engineer examining a failed structure. "Want me to notify someone?" the doctor asked. He shook his head. There's no one to call. When his phone buzzed with a message from Victoria, "We need to talk. I'm coming to the hospital." He silenced it without responding. Instead, he dialed another number. "Tiago? It's Noah. I need into the Carson. After hours. Quietly." Tiago Vaughn, his head of security and a man with a military past, didn't press for explanation. "Tonight?" "Tonight," Noah confirmed. By the time he discharged himself, ignoring the medical team's warnings, the incident at Anastasia's had already become the talk of the town. His phone blinked with 27 unread messages. Concerned colleagues, old friends, even a text from Melissa Lawson expressing sympathy. Not one from his sons. The Carson Theater stood like a mausoleum under the moonlight as he arrived near midnight. Tiago waited by the side entrance, eyes narrowing at the sight of Noah's injuries. "Jesus, boss. What happened to you?" "System collapse," Noah muttered, brushing past him. "I need the blueprint archive online." The basement, once transformed into a secure repository under Cornerstone's renovations, was up and running within 30 minutes. Tiago powered the generators, flicked on the industrial lighting, and reactivated the high-level security system. "Anything else?" he asked. "Privacy, and your silence." Tiago's nod was heavy with understanding. "You got it, but Noah, don't go off the rails, all right?" Left alone, Noah went to work. He converted the archive into a command center. One wall transformed into a twisted web of betrayal. Photos of Victoria, Brandon, Dylan, and the rest connected by pins and red string. Another displayed blueprints of every major project Cornerstone had completed in Dark Hollow. Brandon's glass and steel mansion, Victoria's boutique designed by Dylan, the developments that now loomed like monuments to his misjudgment. By dawn, exhaustion overtook him. He dropped onto a cot in the corner, haunted by feverish dreams of collapsing towers and shattered reflections. A shrill ring woke him, the burner phone, his only remaining lifeline. "You've disappeared," Tiago's voice came through. "But you should know. Your house? It's been emptied. Movers came this morning." Noah absorbed the information like data fed into a calculation. "Mine or theirs?" "Everything's gone, except your study. Victoria was there. The boys too. Davis showed up." "And?" "Dylan filed charges. Assault. He's also got a restraining order. You're barred from going near her, or your sons." "On what grounds?" "Allegations of abusive behavior, threats, mental instability. They've been laying this out for a while, Noah. Building a case." The base of their architecture. Noah had seen enough collapses to know when a fall was engineered. "There's more," Tiago added, hesitating. "Cornerstone's bleeding. Clients are bailing. City pulled their contract. So did the university. Westfield's gone too. All in the last 12 hours. "It's Brandon," Noah murmured, voice low but firm. "It can only be him." No one could orchestrate something this elaborate without a strategic hand behind it. He ended the call and turned toward the chaotic collage of notes, photos, and red string that made up his investigation wall. This wasn't some impulsive act of revenge. This was premeditated. A long, deliberate setup designed to strip him of everything: his family, his legacy, his reputation, even his home. Now only two questions remained. What was the motive? And who else had played a part? When Noah exited the Carson Theater that night, the man who stepped into the street was not the same one who had walked in hours before. The burns on his face had begun to swell, raw and angry, but he made no attempt to conceal them. He wanted them seen. They were no longer wounds, they were a message. He made his way to a place no one would expect: Anastasia's. On any other Friday night, the upscale restaurant would be bustling. Tonight, it was nearly deserted. Word of the scandal had clearly cleared the regulars out. The hostess turned ghost white the moment she recognized him. "Mr. Sanders, I I don't think it's a good idea. I won't be long, he said with measured calm. Just need a few words with Howard. Howard Bryant, the restaurant's owner and a friend for over 20 years, came out from the kitchen looking visibly shaken, brushing flour off his hands. My God, Noah! Your face! I need to see last night's security footage, Noah said, and the reservation list for the river room. Howard froze, uneasy. I can't. They already collected it, said it was part of the evidence supporting the restraining order. And the room was booked under your name. So that's how Victoria got access, Noah said under his breath, starting to see the pattern. She told you it was for some kind of surprise? She said it was for your anniversary, Howard confirmed with a guilty nod. And who footed the bill? Noah asked, already guessing. Davis's office, Howard answered. The payment came 2 weeks ago, a city card. They said it was a community event. Noah absorbed the revelation in silence. Howard looked genuinely gutted. Noah, I swear I had no clue. Did they clean out everything? From the main system, yeah, Noah said, eyes narrowing. Howard's expression shifted. But not the backup, the one in my office. No one even knows it exists but me. They didn't touch it. 30 minutes later, Noah walked out with a thumb drive clutched in his hand, 4 hours of footage from every angle in the river room. On his drive back toward the Carson, his phone rang, a number he didn't recognize. Mr. Sanders? A woman's voice, faintly familiar. This is Laurel Bishop from the Dark Hollow Chronicle. I wanted to reach out before we run Mayor Davis's press release. What release? He's announcing tomorrow. He's running for Congress. And your ex-wife, is doing the introduction. They're going public. Noah's grip on the steering wheel tightened until his knuckles blanched. The tempo was accelerating. No comment, he said, then hung up. Back at the Carson Theater, Noah uploaded the footage and watched every frame, tracking his own downfall in high definition. It hadn't been a chaotic eruption. It was an act, staged, orchestrated down to the timing of every guest and the camera's field of view. Dylan stepping in to spark confrontation. It had all been choreographed. But it was the footage from an hour earlier that revealed the real betrayal. There was Brandon, addressing a small, hand-picked crowd, laying out what he called Operation Clean Break. Noah listened, the mayor's voice echoing across the empty theater. This isn't just about freeing Victoria from an unhealthy situation, Brandon said. This is about moving Dark Hollow forward. Sanders has kept us in the past long enough. The camera swept the room. Familiar faces nodded along. Business owners Noah had fought with over zoning regulations, council members who had opposed his preservation work, and, most painful of all, his sons. Silent, uncomfortable, but complicit in their silence. Then came the reveal. Brandon unfurled a stack of plans and pointed to them. When his image is shattered, Cornerstone goes under. We pick up the Carson Theater in the fallout. Then we launch Phase 2, the Dark Hollow Renaissance. Noah hit pause, zoomed in on the document. Across the top, Project Waterfront, a name he'd never heard. The designs showed sleek, modern buildings in place of the old downtown. The Carson Theater was marked for demolition. It hit him with sudden clarity. This wasn't about an affair. This wasn't petty politics. They needed him eliminated, because he was the only one standing in their way. His credentials as a preservationist, his position on the city's architectural board. He wasn't just a nuisance. He was the last line of defense. They hadn't just tried to disgrace him. They had dismantled his life with surgical precision, like demolishing a structure from the inside. Noah turned off the monitor. Alone in the cold basement of the Carson, he sat still for a moment. Then a quiet resolve settled in. They thought they'd buried him. They were wrong. He was still standing. They had miscalculated, catastrophically. Before any future could be built, the remnants of the past needed to be removed, not in chaos, but with strategy and intention. It demanded the precision of someone who could recognize the stress lines in a crumbling structure and knew exactly where to apply pressure. Someone who understood that destruction, when performed with care, was simply the prologue to creation. Noah Sanders had built a career on restoration, but now he was about to apply that expertise to himself, beginning with the dismantling of Brandon Davis's carefully crafted dominion. For 3 full days, Noah disappeared. No pings from cell towers, no posts or messages, not even a whisper of his presence in Dark Hollow. Rumors swirled while the Chronicle ran a front-page spread that painted Brandon Davis as a local hero. Mayor announces congressional campaign, supports businesswoman's comeback. A polished photo accompanied the story. Victoria beaming beside Brandon on the steps of City Hall, with Dylan standing tall behind them. The twins were absent from the image, but mentioned briefly as adjusting well to life at the mayor's waterside mansion. What the townspeople didn't realize was that Noah had slipped away to Chicago, a quiet 6-hour drive, to reconnect with a former client, Baldwin Reynolds, a powerhouse in tech, whose historic mansion Noah had restored with surgical care years prior. "You helped preserve my family's history," Baldwin said as they sat in his mahogany-lined library. "I meant every word of thanks then, and I still do." "I'm here for information," Noah said calmly. "And your discretion." When Noah returned to Dark Hollow, he brought 3 things: a cashier's check for $2 million, Baldwin's personal stake in Noah's next move, a dossier exposing Brandon Davis's questionable finances, compiled by Baldwin's elite private intelligence team, and, most importantly, a renewed sense of direction. In his absence, the city had moved quickly. Cornerstone Restoration's accounts had been abruptly frozen due to a surprise audit, supposedly triggered by tax inconsistencies. The Carson Theater project was dead, buried by a hastily arranged inspection that all but declared the building structurally unsalvageable. But Noah didn't head straight for the theater. His first stop was a simple 1-story home on the outskirts of town. The woman who answered the door knew who he was the moment she saw him, even with the burn scars partially hidden beneath medical gauze. "Mr. Sanders," she said, cautious but composed. "Miss Winters," Noah replied. "Word is, you're in the business of highly specialized threat assessments now." Sophia Winters, once a top-tier military intelligence operative, now a private security analyst, opened the door without a word and motioned him inside. "Town's been talking," she said, once they sat down in her stark, clean living room. "Some say you vanished overseas. Others think you're plotting to burn down City Hall." "What's your theory?" Noah asked. She studied him with a sharp, unreadable gaze, the same one that had once earned her a reputation as a master interrogator. "I think you're playing a deeper game, but why come to me? We haven't crossed paths since I vetted Tiago's background. What, 5 years back?" "I need someone who can read between the lines," Noah said, placing a USB drive on the coffee table. "This is about Project Waterfront. Davis is trying to gut the historic district, but the financial structure behind it is less than transparent." She picked up the drive. "Less than transparent as in criminal? That's what I need confirmed, and I want to know who else is involved." Sophia hesitated, calculating. Davis has aligned himself with some influential people since he took office. If you're preparing to hit back, you're facing long odds. "This isn't a brawl," Noah answered quietly. "It's precision work." Her expression didn't change, but there was a flicker of intrigue in her eyes. "I don't work cheap anymore." "You'll be paid," Noah assured her. "And if you find anything worth acting on, there'll be a bonus." As Noah walked out of her house, the first piece of his plan clicked into place. The next required a different kind of leverage. The Dark Hollow Herald stood as one of the town's rare architectural gems, a sleek, mid-century modern nod to the enduring role of journalism. Inside, Noah bypassed the front desk and headed straight for a familiar office. "Laurel Bishop," he said, lightly tapping the open door, where a young journalist was surrounded by teetering stacks of paperwork. She looked up, startled. "Mr. Sanders, I didn't think—" "My face is healing," he said, waving it off. "That's not why I'm here. You still want the real story?" She nodded, and for the next hour, Noah gave her a controlled, methodical account. He acknowledged his heartbreak over Victoria's abrupt departure, but kept the spotlight firmly on Project Waterfront. He pushed a folder across her desk. "These are preliminary plans," he said. "Davis wants to demolish over 30 historic buildings, including the Carson Theater. But the real issue isn't what he's doing, it's how. No public review, no financial transparency." Laurel leaned forward, eyes narrowing. "Where'd you get these?" Let's just say not everyone in the mayor's circle is on board with his tactics. This wasn't the scandal she might have expected. No salacious drama, no fiery confession, but it had weight and reach. "Why bring it to me?" she asked. "The Chronicle has more exposure." "Because their publisher, Martin Dixon, is listed in those documents as a lead investor," Noah said, tapping a name on the page. "You, on the other hand, are known for your backbone and your principles." Laurel examined the papers again, her face turning serious. "They'll say this is personal, that you're doing it out of spite. Over Victoria." "Ex-wife," Noah said flatly, "and they can say what they want. The evidence speaks for itself." After severing ties with the Herald, Noah made 2 purposeful visits. The first took him to a storage facility on the city's fringe, where he'd been quietly stashing away belongings for months, ever since he'd begun sensing that something about Victoria wasn't right. From there, he headed to a low-profile law office where Patricia Delgado awaited, an attorney with a reputation for ruthlessly dismantling opponents in divorce proceedings. "You've shown up late to the war," Patricia remarked flatly, flipping through his file. "They've already moved in, filed, frozen the accounts, and labeled you mentally unfit. The restraining order just adds fuel to the fire," she continued, without missing a beat. "I'm not here to contest the divorce," Noah said, his voice cool and measured. "I'm here to lay down a documented pattern of calculated deceit and collusion, something I can take well beyond the confines of family court." Patricia's eyes narrowed slightly, intrigued. "That's a rare tactic." "I'm not your average client," Noah replied. That evening, as Noah pulled up beside the Carson Theater, his phone buzzed relentlessly. Laurel Bishop had wasted no time. Her exposé on Project Waterfront had just been published, and the ripples were already being felt across Dark Hollow's community of preservationists. At the side entrance, Tiago was waiting, his expression dark. "They've scheduled the structural evaluation for tomorrow," Tiago informed him grimly. "Inspectors plan to slap a red tag on the building." "Right when I expected," Noah said, unsettlingly calm. "We should clear out before they make it official," Tiago urged. "We're staying," Noah said firmly. "We've got a long night ahead." "To do what, exactly?" Noah didn't answer immediately. Instead, he handed Tiago a rolled-up set of plans, not of the Carson Theater, but something altogether different. "We're going to manipulate the inspection." Throughout the night, they orchestrated a complex deception. They added cleverly disguised supports where the structure was weakest, applied chemical treatments to solid materials to make them resemble deteriorating surfaces, and embedded tiny electronic devices that would interfere with inspection instruments. "This is insane," Tiago muttered as they worked. "Even if it works now, someone's going to find out." "We don't need it to last forever," Noah said calmly. "Just long enough." As dawn broke, they executed their final task, replacing the original locks with advanced biometric systems disguised to blend seamlessly into the theater's vintage architecture. "From here on out," Noah said, "no one gets in without my approval. Not the mayor, not the inspectors, no one." They stood together in the grand lobby, surrounded by peeling paint and weathered murals. To the outside world, the building looked ready to collapse. But Noah and Tiago knew the truth. Beneath the staged decay, the Carson was as structurally sound as the day it was built. "What happens now?" Tiago asked. Noah glanced at his watch. "We wait for the inspectors. Then the real work begins." "What kind of work?" "The scaffolding for Brandon Davis's downfall." Sunlight streamed through tall, arched windows as Noah walked to the center of the lobby. Hanging above him was a chandelier. He gave a sharp tug on a hidden cord, and the dust cover dropped, revealing a gleaming, restored fixture. "A small beginning," Noah said, watching the light scatter through the glass. "People think restoration means fixing what's broken. But true restoration, that's about making something stronger than it ever was." He turned to Tiago, the morning light catching the jagged scars on his face. "They think they've crushed me, that I've been reduced to dust. But now I get to show them what can rise from that wreckage." At exactly 9 a.m., the city's structural inspection crew arrived, headed by Walter Grimes, a civil engineer Noah had once fired from Cornerstone for cutting corners. Right behind him was Melissa Lawson, her face betraying unease. "Noah," she said warily, eyes darting to the scars on his face. "Didn't expect to see you here. I'm still listed as the project lead, until the plug gets officially pulled," Noah said with distant politeness. "I'm just observing today." Walter didn't bother with pleasantries. "We're here to do a full structural review, checking load-bearing capacity and the foundational stability." "Be my guest," Noah said with a gesture, "though I'd strongly advise against vibration-based tests in the southern wing. That section's dangerously fragile." Over the next 3 hours, Noah watched silently as Walter's team ran their diagnostics. Every reading had been carefully manipulated the night before. Instruments gave back false data. Engineers frowned, took notes, and exchanged worried looks, exactly as Noah had intended. Eventually, Melissa drifted over while Walter examined what seemed to be a dangerously degraded support column. "This inspection got scheduled suspiciously fast," she murmured. "Usually takes weeks." "I imagine the mayor had his reasons," Noah replied smoothly. "Noah." She hesitated. "What happened at Anastasia's? People are talking. Are you all right?" "I've never seen things more clearly," he said, a smile tugging at his lips, but never reaching his eyes. "But clarity always comes at a cost." By early afternoon, Walter assembled his team in the main hall. Their expressions were grave. "Our initial findings reveal major structural deficiencies in several load-bearing elements," he announced, barely concealing his triumph. "We'll be recommending immediate condemnation and expedited approval for demolition." "That feels premature," Noah remarked evenly. "Protocol requires an independent reassessment before any action." Walter offered a dry, almost mocking smile. "Not when public safety is on the line." "We have emergency protocols for that exact scenario," Noah interjected. "But even those demand hard evidence of structural risk, which you don't have. Your data doesn't justify the conclusion you're pushing." Walter's face flushed with frustration. "The Historical Commission and State Preservation Board will review my report," he said sharply. "I've already been in touch with them," Noah replied coolly. "Their team arrives next week. Until then, the building stays untouched." Melissa stepped in, her tone measured. "Noah's right, Walter. We can't ignore state law just because the site is inconvenient." Once the inspection team had left, Walter visibly fuming, Melissa lost in thought, Noah moved fast. He made 3 urgent calls without delay. The first was to Sophia Winters. "We need to move everything up," he said briskly. "Davis is going to push hard." "I'm ahead of you," she answered. "You were right about the offshore trail, multiple transfers to a Cayman company, Blackwater Renaissance LLC. It's getting interesting." "Document every piece," Noah instructed. "Initiate Phase 2. His next call reached Baldwin Reynolds in Chicago. "Funds have been routed exactly as specified," Baldwin confirmed. "Completely clean. But this approach, Are you sure it's the right move? It's bold. Trust me, Noah replied with confidence. In a month, those properties will be worth 3 times as much. The last call went to Patricia Delgado. I filed the countersuit, she said. Allegations include alienation of affection, collusion, emotional damages, all absurd given the restraining order, but they'll open the door to discovery. That's the point, Noah said. And the other matter? My sources have full access to the case proceedings. No secrets will survive in that courtroom. With those tasks in motion, Noah made his way to the basement of the old theater. There, in the dim light, he stood before a wall layered with pinned notes, photographs, and documents. The connections were undeniable now. Brandon wasn't just involved with Victoria, he was enmeshed in a hidden web of investors, shell companies, and concealed interests. At the heart of it all was Project Waterfront, a sweeping redevelopment scheme designed to transform Dark Hollow's historic core into a luxury business district. The plan promised massive profits for its backers, but only if the town's preservation efforts were erased and if Noah Sanders was no longer in the way. A knock broke his concentration. Tiago stepped in, accompanied by a face Noah hadn't seen in years. Bernard Levine, his old mentor, and the state's leading expert in historic architecture. You said it was urgent, Bernard said, giving Noah a brief hug before noting the healing burns. What happened to you? Nothing compared to what they're about to do to this town, Noah said, leading him to the evidence wall. I need your expertise and your name. For the next hour, Noah laid everything bare. Brandon's intentions, the strategy to buy and demolish key sites, and the scale of the conspiracy hiding beneath Project Waterfront. They already have options on 15 landmark properties, Noah said, gesturing to a detailed map. If they manage to take down the Carson Theater, everything else collapses. Values plummet, protections vanish, zoning rules get twisted. Bernard sifted through the evidence, his face growing grim. This would wipe out decades of preservation work, he murmured. But what can I actually do? I'm just a retired academic. You're the most respected preservationist in the state, Noah replied. People listen when you speak. I need you to issue a strong public refutation of Walter's report. No hedging, no doubt. And if I agree, Bernard asked, then you hold the front while I bring the rest of the case together. Bernard studied him. You're not just trying to save a few relics. I'm doing what I've always done, Noah said, unreadable, restoring what matters. The following morning, Noah initiated the next phase of his plan. At exactly 10:00 a.m., while Brandon Davis was giving an interview on the City Hall steps, process servers fanned out across Dark Hollow, delivering legal notices to 17 individuals. Among the recipients, Brandon, Victoria, Dylan, Walter Grimes, and several members of the city council. By midday, Brandon's campaign team had descended into damage control. By 2:00 p.m., the Dark Hollow Chronicle ran its headline, Sanders sues over waterfront plan, alleges widespread corruption. The story, written by veteran reporter Martin Dixon, cast Noah as a bitter ex-husband seeking revenge after a personal scandal. That portrayal was exactly what Noah had anticipated. What Dixon hadn't uncovered, and thus failed to mention, was that while the lawsuit occupied the spotlight, a group of financial operatives under Baldwin Reynolds had been quietly acquiring a majority interest in the Chronicle's parent company, using proxy purchases too subtle to trace. That evening, as the town buzzed with rumors and speculation, Noah made his first public appearance since the restaurant incident. He walked into the monthly meeting of the Dark Hollow Historical Society, just in time to hear Bernard Levine deliver an urgent address about the fate of the Carson Theater. As soon as Noah entered, the room fell into an uneasy silence. Conversations halted, eyes flicked toward him. His face, marked with old scars, drew quick stares and quiet whispers. Without acknowledging them, he made his way to a chair near the back, offering a slight nod to those few who returned his presence with subdued gestures of support. At the front, Bernard was already speaking, delivering a composed, methodical dismantling of Walter's inspection report. He framed his argument with historical precedents, sound engineering principles, and examples from other comparable buildings across the country. In over 50 years of evaluating architectural stability, Bernard said firmly, I've never seen such a blatant manipulation of data used to condemn a building that is, by all accounts, structurally secure. The Carson Theater isn't a hazard, it's heritage. It deserves protection, not demolition. Once the floor opened for community input, Melissa Lawson was the first to step forward. The city followed all established procedures during its review, she stated confidently. Are you accusing our department of tampering with official records? Bernard answered in a calm, deliberate tone. What I'm suggesting is that the findings may have been guided, consciously or not, toward a prearranged outcome. He paused, then added, I won't speculate whether the influence was driven by politics or profit. That remark set off a chain reaction. The room erupted into overlapping arguments and emotional pleas. But Noah remained motionless, silently observing the chaos unfold just as he had anticipated. The foundation of support for Brandon began to waver, with even his staunchest allies starting to question the rush to tear down the old theater. Those who had once scoffed at Noah's legal efforts were now listening, Bernard's reputation lending gravity to what had once seemed a futile stand. Before anyone could reach out to him, Noah quietly slipped away. In the dim lot outside, a figure waited by his truck. Dylan Port, brother to Victoria. He stank of liquor, and his tone was confrontational. You think you're clever, Dylan slurred. Dragging your fancy legal friends in here to play games with the city. He sneered. It won't work. You've already lost. Noah stared at him, his voice ice cold. If that were true, you wouldn't be here. Dylan stepped in closer, lowering his voice. Brandon wants to settle this. No mess, no headlines, just walk away. Noah's reply was flat. Of course he does. Dylan hesitated, then added, It was never personal, you know. Victoria, she hadn't been happy in years. You were just inconvenient. Noah's voice cracked slightly. And my sons? Were they just collateral damage? Dylan looked away, the arrogance slipping from his face. The twins are okay. They're adjusting, getting used to the way things are now. With their mom, with Brandon, without you. Noah's expression didn't change. Used to watching their father be erased? Used to helping dismantle everything he created? They're kids, Dylan replied with a shrug. Teenagers. Brandon can give them things you couldn't. Influence, opportunity. They chose what's best for them. Noah didn't blink. Everyone chooses, he murmured. Tell Brandon I'm not taking his offer. And my sons. He stopped. Forget it. I'll talk to them myself when the time's right. Without another word, Dylan turned and left. Noah pulled out his phone and sent a message to Tiago. Dylan made contact. Initiate Alpha Protocol. Within moments, a car began tailing Dylan from a safe distance. Surveillance equipment captured his movements and calls, technology provided by Baldwin's outfit. Back inside the Carson Theater, Noah wrote Dylan's name on a whiteboard, adding it to a list of individuals entangled in the growing conflict, each one slated for eventual confrontation. Later that night, deep in the theater's underground level, a message from Laurel Bishop lit up Noah's screen. Chronicles running a hit piece on Bernard tomorrow. Word is, Davis leaned hard on Dixon to greenlight it. Noah allowed himself a grim, almost satisfied smirk. Every step the opposition took revealed more of their tactics, their weaknesses. He was analyzing the situation like a seasoned engineer, probing for the pressure points that would bring the entire structure down. Tiago's voice came through the intercom. Sir, you'll want to come up. We've got company. Noah ascended to the lobby. The sparse emergency lights cast long, wavering shadows, Standing beneath them were his sons, Aiden and Austin, just 13, though their faces bore the weight of something older. "Dad," Aiden said softly, "your face." Noah didn't move, maintaining the distance between them like an invisible barrier neither was ready to cross. "How did you get here?" he asked. Austin answered, voice nervous. "We snuck out. Brandon and Mom are at some fundraiser thing." "Does anyone know you're missing?" The boys exchanged a glance. "No," Aiden admitted. "We caught the bus." Noah studied them, the boys who'd watched silently as he was vilified, who had chosen comfort over solidarity. "Why now?" Austin stepped forward, voice unsteady. "Dylan told us you were going off the rails, that you were obsessed, dangerous." "And you believed him?" The two shifted uneasily. "We don't know what to believe anymore," Aiden said. "Mom says you were controlling. Brandon says you've been holding this place back forever." Noah's voice was low. "And what do you think?" Austin paused, then spoke quietly. "We think there's more to all of this than anyone's telling us." At Brandon's home, we stumbled upon something critical. In his office, Austin retrieved a folder from his bag marked Sanders Contingency. Inside were documents dated well before the Anastasia scandal, carefully drafted blueprints designed to dismantle Noah's reputation, sever his professional relationships, and fracture his family ties. "They've been engineering this for almost a year," Aiden said, his voice trembling. "And some of these pages have Mom's signature on them." A wave of conflicting emotions surged through Noah. Vindication, outrage, a deep ache for the pain this had inflicted on his sons. Yet his expression remained impassive as he flipped through the damning contents. "Why bring this to me now?" he asked. "Because it's wrong," Austin said plainly. "Everything they did to you, and how they dragged us into it." Noah looked at his sons with new clarity. For the first time, he truly saw them, not as children who betrayed him, but as victims caught in a sophisticated lie. The confusion and guilt in their eyes told a story of manipulation by those they trusted most. "I can't take these," Noah said eventually, holding the folder out. "Keeping them would be theft, and I won't ask you to spy on your mother or Brandon." Disappointment briefly flashed in their expressions. "But I will ask you this," he added. "Be aware, trust your own judgment, and whatever happens, protect yourselves." "Are you going after Brandon?" Aiden asked quietly. "I'm going to expose the truth," Noah replied, "no matter what it takes." He arranged for Tiago to quietly drive the boys back, dropping them near Brandon's property line. Then Noah, more focused than ever, returned to his objective. The visit hadn't just affirmed his suspicions, it proved the campaign against him had been premeditated, mapped out long before it publicly began. More importantly, he'd seen the first signs of fracture within the alliance opposing him. With the right pressure, those cracks could be exploited. By sunrise, Noah had refined his approach. The new intel gave shape to a multi-pronged offensive: legal maneuvers, economic pressure points, carefully timed revelations, and psychological tactics. Like any seasoned strategist, he knew that strength began at the foundation. Brandon Davis had built his empire on deception. Noah's weapon was truth, and truth, when reinforced properly, could bear any weight. 2 weeks after Bernard Levine's explosive presentation, Dark Hollow was sharply polarized. The Chronicle continued to smear Noah's character, painting him as a vengeful ex-husband obsessed with destroying the town's beloved mayor. Meanwhile, under Laurel Bishop's unwavering editorial leadership, the Herald began publishing exposés that called into question the integrity and legality of Project Waterfront. The State Preservation Board's deep dive into the Carson Theater supported Bernard's claims. There were no structural issues justifying its demolition. Brandon retaliated by initiating a review of the city's historic site protections, clearly an attempt to bulldoze obstacles in the way of his developments. Noah remained publicly silent. He refused interviews, made no official comments, and avoided any direct confrontation with Brandon or Victoria. The restraining order still held, though Patricia Delgado had filed a challenge, supported by Noah's growing cache of evidence that proved the entire affair had been strategically orchestrated. Outwardly, not much appeared to have changed, but beneath the surface, Noah's counteroffensive advanced with precision. Baldwin's group has secured 5 major properties along the river, Sophia reported one evening in the makeshift war room below the Carson building, each one under a different front company. No paper trail leading back to me? Noah asked. Not a single link. And the Chronicle? The final deal closes tomorrow. Dixon still hasn't put the pieces together. At that moment, Tiago stepped in carrying another batch of financial documents. Cornerstone's funds are still frozen, but we've tracked down the judge who signed off on it, Judge Reynolds. His son works for Blackwater Renaissance LLC, offshore, tied to Brandon. Get Patricia on the line, Noah said. This goes straight to the Judicial Ethics Board. Anonymously. They paused as a call came through. Laurel Bishop. Noah, I've got something big. I can't explain it over the phone. You need to see it. Half an hour later, Laurel slipped through the discreet side entrance of the Carson building, a manila envelope clutched tight. Tiago led her down to the basement where she stopped, stunned by the scale of Noah's operations. Jesus, she muttered. I like my structures sound, Noah said. What do you have? She opened the envelope and pulled out several photographs. These were taken at a private resort in the Caymans 6 months ago. My source risked a lot to get them. The images showed Brandon in deep discussion with developers, finance execs, and 2 highly recognizable figures, Martin Dixon from the Chronicle and Judge Samuel Reynolds. This confirms they've been coordinating the waterfront deal in secret, Laurel said. No oversight, no records, completely off the books. Then she drew out a second stack. These were more personal. Brandon, clearly engaged with a woman who wasn't Victoria. Her name is Chloe Walters, Laurel continued, daughter of Richard Walters, the key investor in Blackwater Renaissance. These were taken while Brandon was still publicly courting Victoria. Noah studied the images, his face unreadable. You haven't published any of this? Not yet. The publisher's worried about litigation. Honestly, I am too. These came from someone close to Brandon. They're starting to lose control. What do you need? Noah asked. Verifying the source and securing the leak. Noah gave Sophia a look, prompting her to jot something into her notebook. We can cover both fronts, she said, but I need collateral. Name it, Laurel responded without hesitation. Hold the story. Exactly 1 week, Noah interjected. Then release everything in one blow. Brandon's offshore meetings, the affair with Walters, the financial trail. Laurel frowned. Why hold back? This could unravel the entire waterfront scandal right now. Because demolition and development share one truth, Noah said. Timing is the fulcrum. He elaborated. In 7 days, the stars align. The Chronicle's new ownership goes public, the ethics board reviews Judge Reynolds, and Brandon hosts his biggest fundraiser at Dark Hollow. Laurel's expression shifted as the pieces clicked into place. A political storm in perfect formation. Right, Noah confirmed. One last thing, leave Victoria out of it. Keep the narrative focused on Brandon, Walters, and the money. After Laurel exited, Sophia shot Noah a questioning look. You're sparing Victoria? After what she did? I'm not protecting her, Noah said, eyes scanning the planning board again. I'm waiting for the right moment to make her fall count. An unforeseen offer. The following day threw a curveball. Patricia Delgado called with a curve Noah hadn't seen coming. Dylan Port had requested a secretive meeting. He claims he has something you'd want, Patricia said. He called it insurance. On Brandon. Where's it happening? Tonight, Boathouse in Riverside Park. His only condition: no attorneys, no witnesses. Noah paused. Sounds like a trap. Almost certainly, Patricia replied. But remember, traps can swing both ways. That evening, as the sun set and bathed Dark Hollow in a fiery glow, Noah made his way to the aging boathouse tucked inside the park. He arrived early, an hour ahead, giving Tiago and Sophia's surveillance crew time to sweep the site and establish coverage. 3 men with port inside. Tiago's voice crackled in Noah's earpiece. Armed, 1 at each side window, 1 guarding the rear. Davis? No, just hired muscle, local. Noah didn't deviate from the plan. He walked in openly, activating the concealed recorders stitched into his jacket as he reached the door. Inside, Dylan paced like a man battling nerves. He jolted slightly when Noah entered but quickly plastered on a forced grin. Noah, appreciate you coming. You mentioned insurance, Noah said, voice flat. Dylan's gaze darted to the corners where his men stood hidden in shadow. Right to business, huh? Fine. I've got proof. Bank records, email chains, call transcripts. Brandon set you up, long before Victoria ever stepped in. And you've been sitting on this for what reason? Noah asked. I'm no fool, Dylan snapped. Guys like Brandon chew you up and spit you out. Now that the project's under fire, he's dumping me. My firm with Victoria? Suddenly under audit? My city council seat? Under threat from one of his lackeys? What do you want from me, then? Protection and compensation for what I can give. Noah's expression didn't waver. And what makes you think I can provide either? Don't play dumb, Dylan growled. Word is you're the one behind all of it. Your civil case, Levine's investigation, the Herald poking around. You're pulling the strings. A fitting analogy, Noah said softly, coming from someone who helped string me up in the first place. Dylan shifted, uneasy. Strictly professional, nothing personal. Tell that to the burns on my face. The silence that followed was heavy and sharp. Finally, Dylan pulled a flash drive from his coat pocket and extended it. 200 grand, cash. That's my price. You get the files and I disappear from Dark Hollow. Names, dates, transfers, everything needed to bury Brandon and his inner circle. All of them? Noah asked. Even Victoria? Dylan paused, just a beat too long. Like I said, business. Noah stared at the man before him, once an ally turned traitor, now ready to sell out his sister for money and safety. And just like that, Noah restructured the entire playbook in his mind. I'll need time to verify what's on that drive. No dice, Dylan snapped. Cash first, then the data. That's not how this works, Noah said coldly. You came to me. I owe you nothing, and I believe even less. Dylan offered a slight tilt of the head, and from the dim edge of the room, a man stepped forward, his hand resting with quiet intent on the shape of a hidden firearm beneath his coat. You're in no place to make demands, Noah. Noah remained still, unmoved. Actually, I'm in exactly the position I need to be. Everything you're saying is currently being broadcast in real time to both my attorney and a private tactical unit stationed nearby. Almost on cue, faint red laser sights danced across the chest of Dylan's associate. The man stopped cold, pupils dilating as the realization hit. Noah's voice stayed calm and steady. And for the record, the state police are standing by for my go-ahead. I convinced them to let me try resolving this without violence. Dylan's complexion turned a shade paler. You're bluffing. Without a trace of urgency, Noah reached into his jacket, pulled out his phone, and angled the screen toward him. The live stream showed a SWAT team in full gear methodically surrounding the boathouse from all sides. You've got 1 minute, Noah said evenly. First option, surrender the flash drive. Tell your men to step down and walk out of here quietly. Once I confirm the data, you'll receive instructions on what to do next. He let that sink in before continuing. Second option, I give the order and law enforcement storms the place. And extortion? That'll be the least of your legal nightmares. Dylan sneered, but his voice cracked slightly. This is a farce. I came to help you. No, Noah corrected him sharply. You came because you've run out of plays and you're desperate. The clock's ticking. You've got 40 seconds. Silence fell like a heavy curtain. Dylan's jaw tensed as he mentally weighed the limited paths before him. After a beat, he muttered a curse and tossed the flash drive onto the ground between them. This isn't finished, Sanders. It is for you, Noah replied, bending down to pick up the drive. You've got until dawn to vanish from Dark Hollow. Don't contact Victoria. Don't call Brandon. Don't reach out to anyone connected to this. And if I ignore that? Dylan challenged. Noah's tone turned razor sharp. Then what follows will make tonight look like a warm-up act. You don't scare me. I'm not here to scare you, Noah shot back. I'm offering your only exit. Take it or don't. 20 seconds left. With a glare full of venom, Dylan signaled his men to stand down. This whole place will burn when the truth comes out. You know that, right? Noah had already turned his back. Not the town, just the rot that's been eating away at it. Back in the fortified basement beneath the Carson Theater, Noah inserted the flash drive into his encrypted system. As Dylan had claimed, it contained damning evidence, meticulous records of bribes paid to local officials, emails plotting to dismantle Noah's business from within, and, most damning, audio files in which Brandon laid out a scheme to manipulate Victoria into undermining Noah's reputation, clearing the path for Project Waterfront. This changes everything, Noah told his inner circle as they gathered around the monitors. He turned to Sophia. Call Laurel. The Herald runs this tomorrow, not next week. Tiago raised an eyebrow. What about the Chronicle? Baldwin takes it over tonight, Noah responded. By morning, Martin Dixon is gone, and the paper gets new leadership. From here on, every move would have to be executed with pinpoint precision. While Sophia and Laurel finalized the Herald's explosive front page, Tiago discreetly contacted trusted state officials, those who had long waited for hard proof to move against Brandon Davis. Then, at the stroke of midnight, Noah made a call he had rehearsed a dozen times. He dialed a number very few people knew he possessed. A voice, smooth and composed, answered, I know who you are, Mr. Sanders. What I don't know is how you found this number. The same way I secured high-res images of your daughter vacationing with Brandon Davis in the Caymans, Noah replied, along with documentation tying you financially to an illegal development operation. A long pause followed. I'm listening. By morning, Noah said, the Dark Hollow Herald will publish a full exposé on Project Waterfront, your daughter's role included, along with Brandon's tangled web of deceit. By noon, the Attorney General will launch a formal investigation. Brandon's career? Dead by sundown. What is it you want? The man, Walters asked, his voice tight. I'm giving you a choice, Noah said. Stay loyal to Davis and fall with him, or cut ties now and publicly denounce the project before the headlines hit. You're asking me to betray a business partner to save myself. I'm handing you a lifeline, Noah replied. Whether you take it is up to you. Once the line went dead, Noah sat alone in the cold quiet of the theater's lower level. His eyes moved across the sprawling boards of plans and connections, every angle, every vulnerable point carefully plotted. By the time the sun rose, Brandon Davis's empire wouldn't be destroyed by enemies from the outside. It would collapse under the weight of its own hubris. As dawn edged its way across the sky, Noah allowed himself a brief moment of stillness. Behind his closed eyes played the haunting image of Anastasia at the piano, a cruel reminder of disgrace, of betrayal sharp enough to cleave through bone, and of the precise moment his world had collapsed. His hand drifted to the fading burns on his cheek, a permanent testament to that cursed night. Brandon, Victoria, and their cohort believed they'd executed the perfect downfall of Noah Sanders. What they hadn't accounted for was that Noah was not a man who shattered easily. He was a man who rebuilt from ruins. His entire life had been a study in collapse and the mechanics of rebirth. The first gold of morning leaked through the grimy basement window when his phone vibrated. A message lit the screen, short and electric. Herald printing now. Buckle up. Laurel Noah allowed a wry smile. The framework was in place. What followed would test the strength of what he'd engineered. By 9:10 a.m., Dark Hollow was in upheaval. The Herald's headline screamed across the front page, "Mayor's secret plot exposed." Beneath it, two incriminating photos delivered a devastating blow. One captured Brandon with an arm casually draped over Victoria during a rally. The other showed him in an intimate moment with Chloe Walters, taken in the Cayman Islands. The exposé left no room for doubt. Supported by a trove of damning documents, emails, financial records, and signed statements, the piece laid bare the conspiracy. Brandon had singled out Noah as a threat to Project Waterfront and moved to eliminate him. Victoria had been weaponized in a deliberate smear campaign against her husband. Meanwhile, Brandon maintained a hidden affair with the daughter of his chief investor. Across town, the Chronicle issued a very different cover. Chronicle under new leadership. Paper apologizes for waterfront bias. The accompanying article offered a sweeping retraction of its earlier anti-Sanders coverage and included a public statement from the newly instated publisher, pledging a return to ethical journalism and impartial reporting. By 10, the press had descended on City Hall. Reporters swarmed the steps, staffers flitted about like startled birds, but the one figure who didn't appear was Brandon. He'd canceled every engagement that morning. Noah observed it all from the Carson Theater, which he'd quietly converted into a makeshift media nerve center. Tiago and Sophia managed the incoming updates, tracking the ripple effect as it widened. "Walters just released a statement," Sophia reported. "He's distancing himself from Brandon and disavowing the waterfront project. Says he was misled. He's cooperating with investigators." Tiago chimed in. "Judge Reynolds has recused himself from all Dark Hollow cases, announced a temporary leave. The State Ethics Board just opened an investigation." Noah absorbed each report with a steady calm, his mind quietly ticking through every consequence. "And the restraining order?" he asked without looking up. "Gone," Tiago confirmed. "Patricia filed emergency motions early this morning. Based on the new evidence, Judge Horvath nullified the order within an hour." At 11, Noah received the call he'd been waiting on. Bernard Levine's voice came through, laced with satisfaction. "It's official, Noah. The State Historical Commission just voted. Unanimous decision. Downtown Dark Hollow is now under emergency preservation status. No demolitions, no structural changes. So nothing can proceed without their explicit approval. For 5 years. Exactly. And the Carson Theater? Recognized as a protected landmark. The restoration grant? It's already being expedited. Another major victory locked into place. With the district now safeguarded and the waterfront project effectively neutralized, Brandon's last grip on Noah had been broken. All that remained was the confrontation. At noon, sharp, for the first time in weeks, Noah stepped openly onto the streets of downtown Dark Hollow. People paused as he passed. His scars still told the story of the fire and violence at Anastasia's. Some nodded with quiet recognition. Others looked away, weighed down by their silence or regret. Noah's path led to Verity, Victoria's boutique. It was the first time he could enter legally since the restraining order had barred him. The store was quiet, just a single employee at the counter. She went pale as recognition dawned. "Mr. Sanders, I'll get Victoria." Moments later, Victoria emerged from the office, composure faltering the moment her eyes met the ruin on his face. "Noah," she said, her voice sharp-edged but brittle. "I assume you're here to gloat." "Not quite," he replied evenly. I came to tell you Dylan tried to sell you and Brandon out. To me, to the authorities. He's fled. You won't see him again." Her poised expression fractured. "He betrayed you," Noah continued, voice cold. "Just like you betrayed me. I guess treachery runs in the blood." She gestured toward a private lounge area. Once seated, she studied him, eyes flicking between defense and calculation. "The article didn't name me," she said carefully. "Just claimed Brandon manipulated me. That was your doing, wasn't it?" Though she hadn't framed it as a question, Noah gave a slight nod. "Why?" she asked, genuinely uncertain. "After everything I put you through?" "It wasn't about you," Noah replied. "It was for Aiden and Austin. They don't deserve to wear the fallout." At the mention of their sons, something inside Victoria finally gave way. Her last layer of armor crumbled. "They act like I don't exist," she whispered, voice shaking. "Since those pictures of Brandon and Chloe went public, the kids have shut themselves away. They won't speak to me. They won't even look at me." "Betrayal wounds children in ways adults often underestimate," Noah said gently. Victoria's eyes narrowed, her demeanor sharpening into steel. "You've shattered everything, my relationship, my family, my reputation in this town. Is this what you were aiming for?" "I didn't break a thing," Noah replied, his voice steady. "I just brought to light what was already festering underneath." He leaned forward slightly, lowering his voice. "And don't pretend you're innocent. Dylan uncovered enough to prove you weren't just aware. You were involved from the beginning, enthusiastically." Her face drained of color. "You can't prove that." Without a word, Noah pulled out his phone and played a clipped audio recording. Victoria's unmistakable voice, conspiring with Brandon, meticulously planning Noah's public downfall at Anastasia's. "I've got hours of these," he said, slipping the phone back into his pocket. "Recordings, emails, signed contracts, enough evidence to make sure you never restore your name around here." Her posture wilted. "What do you want?" "Two things," he said evenly. "First, I want unfettered access to Aiden and Austin. No interference, no manipulation, no more mind games." She gave a silent nod, subdued. "Second, the boutique. You'll sign over your share to the trust I established for the twins. You built that shop with funds from our marriage while scheming to tear it all down. Now, it'll be a foundation for their future." "And if I refuse?" "Then tomorrow," Noah said flatly, "every detail of your role in this conspiracy will be made public. The boys will see and hear it all. Your voice, your lies, and the fragile life you've been clinging to will disintegrate." Tears welled up and spilled down her cheeks, but Noah didn't flinch. No satisfaction, no anger, not even grief, just patience. "I'll sign," she finally murmured. "Patricia will send you the documents by the afternoon." Noah stood to leave. "Was any of it real?" Victoria called after him. "Our marriage? Did you ever love me?" He paused at the doorway. "My entire world was built around you," he said quietly, fingers brushing the scarred lines on his cheek. "Every part of it, deliberate, enduring. I won't make that mistake again." As he stepped out of the boutique, Noah's phone buzzed with a message from Sophia. "Brandon just entered Carson Theater through the rear service door. He's armed." Noah allowed himself the ghost of a smile. The plan was moving forward exactly as he intended. He approached the theater through the main entrance, the air heavy with silence. The dim lobby wrapped around him as he moved forward, soundless and focused, toward the main auditorium. Per his instructions, Tiago and Sophia kept their distance. This had to unfold without interference. On the stage, Brandon stood beneath a harsh overhead light, alone. Once pristine, the former mayor now looked disheveled, tie undone, hair askew, his eyes frantic. The gun in his hand caught the light as he paced. "I knew you'd show," Brandon said, spotting Noah approaching the stage. "You always cared more about this old dump than anything that actually mattered. Is that your justification?" Noah asked, continuing his approach. Calling it progress? You never got it, Brandon snapped. Dark Hollow was circling the drain. Waterfront would have saved it. Jobs, revenue, development. And sure, we'd have gotten rich. That's the cost of innovation. He waved the gun carelessly. But you had to be the savior, always preaching, always condemning, like you're some kind of moral compass. You could have pitched a plan that didn't erase the town's legacy, Noah said, climbing the stage. We might have found a path forward, together. There's no negotiating with zealots, Brandon barked, and that's what you are, obsessed with the past while the present moves on. Instead, you chose to ruin me, Noah said, stopping just feet away. You destroyed my marriage, drove a wedge between me and my sons, publicly humiliated me, left me marked, inside and out. Brandon's hands shook. It was never personal. You seduced my wife. You pulled my family apart. That's not strategy. That's betrayal. Brandon's facade cracked. You think outing me wins you something? I've got reach beyond this place. Power, influence. I'll recover. I always do. No, Noah said quietly with finality. You won't. He took a step closer, unwavering as Brandon raised the gun and pointed it at his chest. Because that's what separates us. You weave facades atop decay. I construct with permanence. Stay right there, Brandon snapped, finger tightening against the trigger. His voice was a blade, sharp and tense. Noah didn't flinch. The Attorney General's office has launched a comprehensive probe into every facet of Project Waterfront, Noah said, his tone calm and even, as though the firearm aimed at him were irrelevant. The FBI's already dissecting the offshore holdings. Walters turned state's witness. He's spilling everything to save himself. Every dollar, every memo, every whispered deal, it's all under federal review. With each statement, he took another measured step forward. Your career in politics, it's finished. Your business is crashing, your reputation's in ruins. And that affair with Victoria? The world knows now it was just one more calculated deception. Chloe Walters didn't hold back either. She issued a statement, said she feels like a fool. Brandon's hand quivered. I said don't move, he barked, his grip on the weapon faltering. What's your play here, Brandon? Noah said, voice cool and steady. You gonna shoot me? In a place crawling with surveillance? Add murder to your list of felonies? What's the upside to that? How's that help you rebuild anything? A thick silence wrapped around them, broken only by Brandon's uneven breathing as the weight of it all crushed down on him. Then his shoulders sagged, and the gun began to lower. What do you want from me? He asked, the words echoing with the same emptiness Victoria's had earlier. I want clarity, Noah said, stepping within arm's reach. Everything you did to me, you're now experiencing in reverse. The people you manipulated, they've all turned their backs. Your empire, dust. Before Brandon could react, Noah's hand shot out, wrenching the gun from his grasp and sending it skittering across the stage. In one swift movement, he shoved Brandon against the wall, a firm hand pressed to his throat. I could shatter what's left of you, Noah said, his voice a low, steady threat. What happened today? It's just the prologue. I could make sure you never recover, financially, legally, emotionally. Brandon's eyes widened, panic rising as he clawed at Noah's grip. But I won't. You'll do it to yourself. That's how stories like yours end. He released him. Brandon crumpled to the floor, coughing violently and gulping air. Leave Dark Hollow, Noah ordered. Don't call Victoria. Stay away from my sons. Consider it generous that I'm showing more restraint than you ever did. As Noah turned away, Brandon lunged for the weapon in desperation. In a flash, Noah pivoted and kicked the gun out of reach. It clattered across the stage, far from Brandon's grasp. That, he said, his tone ice-cold, was your final mistake. Out of the shadows at the edge of the stage, Tiago stepped forward with two uniformed officers at his side, pistols raised. Mayor Davis, one of them said formally, You're being arrested for attempted assault with a deadly weapon, unlawful entry, and violating a restraining order. As the cuffs locked around Brandon's wrists, his face twisted with venom. "This isn't over, Sanders," he spat. Noah stared at him unmoved. "No, Brandon, this is the end. Today proved exactly what your empire was built on: lies, pressure, and weakness. And like all hollow things, it collapsed." Later that evening, as the golden dusk bathed the Carson Theater in a burnished light, Noah stood atop the roof, gazing out over the town. He could see the heart of Dark Hollow below him, the winding river it was named for, and the silhouette of the house he no longer called home. Tiago stepped up beside him, offering a cup of coffee. Bernard called. "The restoration funds are approved. They hit the account next week. We can start work on the Carson as soon as that clears," Tiago added. Noah gave a silent nod, feeling a quiet gratitude for the chance to rebuild what mattered: history, heritage, and future. "By the way," Tiago continued, "Sophia tracked down Dylan. He's holed up in a Cincinnati motel. She's keeping tabs." "And the boys?" Noah asked. "Patricia arranged everything. They'll be flying in tomorrow morning. The custody hearing's next month. With Victoria's confession and Brandon in custody, the odds are in your favor." Noah sipped his coffee. No pride, no triumph. Just the solid sense of a man who had stabilized a structure that once seemed unsalvageable. "And you?" Tiago asked after a pause. "The buildings are coming back. Business is steady. Your kids are safe. But how's Noah Sanders holding up?" Noah traced the faint scars on his face, physical remnants of the night his world was torn apart. "Noah Sanders is under reconstruction," he said. "Like anything worth saving, it'll take time, but this time the foundation's real. The flaws have been confronted. The frame is strong." Below them, the town of Dark Hollow carried on, oblivious to the quiet war that had preserved its soul. Life moved forward, unaware that its survival had hinged on timing, strategy, and a stubborn kind of hope. Noah had lost a marriage. His name had been dragged through ruin. His body bore marks that would never fully fade. But he had salvaged the one thing that defined him: his integrity, his legacy, the spirit of Dark Hollow. Some would call it revenge. Noah Sanders called it rebuilding. 6 months later, locals had given the moment a name: the collapse. And the Carson Theater? It gleamed like new, gold accents polished to a brilliant shine, a monument to the idea that even the shattered can rise again. The newly restored ceiling murals shimmered with vivid detail, casting a fresh brilliance across the hall, just in time for the Grand Marquis's eagerly awaited reopening gala scheduled for the next evening. From his perch on the upper balcony, Noah watched as the last few tasks were swiftly completed by his expanded cornerstone restoration team. The crew worked with practiced precision, tying up final details. Despite a recent storm of challenges, the company had not only survived, but emerged stronger, its public standing now solidified in stark contrast to the very public collapse of Brandon Davis. "We're ahead of schedule and coming in under budget," Tiago reported as he approached Noah at the railing. The Historical Commission confirmed their attendance for tomorrow. He paused before adding, "There's even talk the governor might show." Noah nodded, his expression calm but quietly triumphant. Since the dramatic arrest of Brandon and the implosion of Project Waterfront, Noah had immersed himself in Cornerstone's growth. The firm had since branched out across 3 neighboring states, launched a hands-on restoration training initiative, and led the charge on the revival of the historic Carson Theater. "Any news on the other front?" Noah asked, lowering his voice. Tiago glanced around discreetly before replying. "Phase 1 is done. Dylan Port's influence is waning. Exactly as we planned." After the project's downfall, Dylan had tried to rebrand himself in Cincinnati, pouring misappropriated funds from Victoria's boutique into a fresh venture. But a coordinated flood of anonymous tips and well-timed leaks doomed the effort, leading to public embarrassment and triggering a cascade of fraud investigations. "He's out of cash, burned all his bridges," Tiago said. "Word is he's negotiating a plea with the feds." "Good," Noah said softly. "And Victoria?" "She's still in Dark Hollow, still running the boutique under court monitoring. The psych report confirmed what we suspected: narcissistic personality disorder with manipulative tendencies. The custody terms were updated accordingly." Since being granted full custody of Aiden and Austin, Noah had moved the boys into a lovingly restored Victorian home near the town square, a perfect blend of personal passion and professional skill. The twins had thrived in the new setting. The emotional weight they once carried had slowly lifted, replaced by a closer bond with their father. Victoria was granted twice-monthly supervised visits, though she frequently skipped them, citing vague work obligations. Every absence was carefully documented by Patricia Delgado, the boys' case supervisor, each missed appointment feeding into the ongoing legal review. "Speaking of the twins," Tiago said, checking his watch, "aren't they coming by to see the final result?" "They should be here any minute," Noah replied. "They wanted an early look before the big event." As if on cue, the sound of lively chatter floated up from the floor below. Moments later, Aiden and Austin bounded up the ornate staircase, their faces lit with awe. "Dad, this is incredible," Austin said, slowly spinning to take it all in. "Way better than the renderings," Aiden agreed. "We tried the acoustics downstairs, stood on opposite sides of the lobby and could hear each other whisper." Noah's face softened into a smile, a gesture that had become more natural in recent months. "Want to check out the projection booth?" he offered. "We've got both digital and 35mm ready to go." He led his sons through the theater, pointing out details of the restoration with quiet pride. At 14, the boys had begun taking genuine interest in his work. Austin, in particular, had started talking about studying architecture. The tour ended on the rooftop, where Noah had turned what was once a forgotten corner of the building into a serene garden with panoramic views of the river and city skyline. "This wasn't in the blueprints," Aiden remarked with curiosity. "Not every improvement is about looking backward," Noah replied. "Sometimes you have to build something new from whatever remains." The boys exchanged a glance. They understood exactly what he meant. After a short silence, Austin spoke gently. "We saw Mom yesterday," he said. Noah's expression didn't shift. "How'd it go?" "She wouldn't shut up about Brandon," Aiden muttered, annoyed. "She kept saying he was innocent and the charges were just politics." "She still visits him in prison," Austin added. "She says they're getting married once his appeal goes through." Noah took it all in with practiced calm. Brandon had accepted a plea deal, admitting guilt to several financial crimes in exchange for immunity from conspiracy charges. He was currently serving a light sentence, 3 years in a low-security federal facility. Noah believed the punishment didn't fit the crime, but it served a larger purpose. "People cling to whatever helps them sleep at night," he told them. "Your mom's allowed her beliefs, even if they don't align with reality." The twins nodded. They were used to their father's measured responses when it came to Victoria. After a pause, Aiden hesitated before speaking again. "Dad, we've been talking. We don't want to keep going to the visits." "Not unless she actually gets help," Austin added. Noah weighed their words with care. "That's your decision," he said slowly. "But keep in mind, cutting her off might not be the thing that changes her." "We're not doing it to punish her," Austin said. "We're doing it to protect ourselves." Dr. Sophia Winters had long since evolved beyond her original role as a security consultant. She now served as the Sanders family's unofficial therapist, especially for the twins, guiding them through the emotional wreckage left by their mother's betrayal and their unintended role in the scandal that had brought Noah down so publicly. "If this is truly the path you and Dr. Winters feel is best, I won't oppose it," Noah had said. Patricia will oversee the logistics. As the three Sanders stood in contemplative silence, overlooking the somber beauty of Dark Hollow, Noah couldn't help but reflect on how different everything might have been, had he given in to fury instead of choosing patience and precision. Instead of meeting corruption with violence or illegal schemes, Noah had gone to work with surgical precision, letting the truth do the damage. He identified vulnerabilities and applied pressure deliberately, almost coldly. Dylan was on his way to prison. Brandon was already incarcerated. Victoria had burned through her options. Judge Reynolds had resigned in disgrace. Martin Dixon had vanished to Florida once the financial misconduct at the Chronicle came to light. Noah had approached the systemic rot like an architect restoring a beloved but crumbling structure, methodically removing what was rotten, piece by piece. "Dad?" Austin's voice broke into his reverie. "Is it bad that I don't feel sorry for what happened to Brandon and the others after what they did to you?" Noah took a moment to weigh the question. "Justice and revenge can look alike," he replied. "What separates them is the motive and how you carry it out. What happened to those people was the natural outcome of their own choices. They were just exposed." That seemed to ease something in Austin. He nodded, quietly thoughtful. Later that evening, after making sure the twins were settled for their tutoring session, Noah made an impromptu visit to Verity, Victoria's boutique. She was there alone, locking up for the night. Subtle changes had crept into her appearance. Her outfit no longer perfectly coordinated, her makeup slightly overdone, her once effortless grace now tinged with unease. "Noah," she said, clearly surprised. "Didn't think I'd see you here." "The boys told me you've been bringing up Brandon during your time with them," Noah said, his tone direct. Victoria's posture stiffened. "My personal life is no longer your concern." "It becomes my concern when it affects them. We had an agreement. You're not supposed to bring him up during visits." "They asked," she said defensively. "What was I supposed to do? Lie?" "You were supposed to respect their emotional well-being and stick to the guidelines we agreed on," Noah responded evenly. "Dr. Winters has recorded an increase in their anxiety after they see you." Her expression darkened. "That woman's poisoning them against me, and so are you, while pretending to be the neutral one. They've said they don't want to continue visits unless you get professional support." "Support?" Victoria gave a harsh, humorless laugh. "Support for what? For realizing you're just a sanctimonious control freak obsessed with buildings? For wanting something more than being your accessory?" Noah didn't react. "The psychologist flagged certain behaviors that conflict with your ability to parent effectively. If you're open to addressing those and making progress, the visits can resume." "What's next?" she snapped. "You planning to take my business too? You've already taken everything else. The store is held in a trust for the twins. You'll stay in charge, provided you keep it running well." He turned to leave. "Patricia will reach out about the visitation changes. That's all I have to say." "He'll be out in less than 2 years," she called after him. "Brandon has people, power. You're underestimating him." Noah paused and looked back. "When Brandon Davis gets out, he'll find the world has left him behind. His allies have moved on. His wealth is gone. His reputation is in ruins. There's no path back for him." Victoria faltered, the force of his words settling over her like a weight. "Brandon thought destruction was the end," Noah said quietly. "I've always seen it as the beginning. The moment when you clear the wreckage and start something stronger." As he stepped into the evening, his phone vibrated. A message from Sophia lit the screen. "Loose ends secured. Walters fully on board." Richard Walters, seeking to avoid prosecution, had agreed to testify about crimes Brandon had committed that weren't covered by his original deal. Even if Brandon completed his sentence without incident, he'd be facing new charges the moment he walked free. Noah made his way to the Carson Theater for one final inspection before the gala. The building shimmered under the night sky, a revitalized beacon in a city that had only narrowly escaped cultural erosion. Inside, he walked through the silent halls, testing seat rows, checking sightlines, ensuring that every detail aligned with the vision he had fought so hard to realize. To Noah, the Carson was more than just brick and mortar. It was a symbol of perseverance, of the beauty and restoration, of rebuilding from ruin with grace and purpose. The scars on his body from the fire would never vanish, but they had become part of his identity, visible proof of survival. Likewise, the Carson's walls bore their past with pride, their imperfections now woven into a structure more resilient than it had ever been. As Noah wrapped up his final inspection, he noticed Tiago loitering near the lobby. "All systems are green," Tiago told him. "You can finally crash for a few hours before tomorrow." Noah offered a tired nod, exhaustion beginning to dull his senses. "Before I go, any intel on our primary surveillance subjects?" Tiago understood the deeper concern instantly. Dylan is still holed up in Cincinnati. His finances are circling the drain. Victoria's keeping her usual schedule, but our sources say her behavior's taken a sharp turn, more volatile than usual. Brandon is still making his routine prison calls to her. We don't know what they're discussing. "And our backup plan?" Noah asked. "Right on schedule," Tiago replied. "The files you prepared will reach their intended recipients exactly when we arranged, no matter what shifts in the meantime." That file was Noah's insurance policy, an exhaustive dossier detailing Brandon, Victoria, Dylan, and their extended network. It was designed to be activated in the event of his incapacitation. Noah didn't expect disaster, but like any seasoned planner, he believed in structural redundancy. "Good," Noah said, satisfied. "Then we're set for tomorrow." The grand reopening of the Carson Theater the following evening exceeded even Noah's rigorous expectations. State officials, heritage advocates, and the social elite of Dark Hollow gathered to witness the rebirth of the historic site. Notably absent were any traces of Brandon Davis's defunct enterprise. Cornerstone Restoration had reclaimed its reputation and its trajectory, with a wave of new projects already confirmed throughout the region. Noah was honored with the State Historical Society's top accolade for preservation excellence. The governor hailed the Carson as a beacon of legacy and civic pride. All night long, Noah accepted the praise with quiet composure, directing credit toward his crew and the work itself. Only a handful, Tiago, Sophia, Bernard, and his 2 kids, understood the deeper meaning. This was never just about restoring a building. It was about demonstrating that strategic deconstruction could pave the way for stronger structures, physically and metaphorically. While the celebration hummed below, Noah slipped away to the projection booth for a moment of solitude. Through its narrow window, he watched guests toast and marvel, unaware of the full story behind the success. His phone buzzed. A message from an unrecognized number. "Well done with the Carson. Impressive work, as always. Maybe we misjudged each other. When things shift on my end, we should revisit that collaboration idea. BD." Noah smirked at the message, Brandon's barely disguised attempt to reopen a door. Even in defeat, Davis was maneuvering, seeking an angle, calculating the long game. Noah deleted the message without hesitation. Brandon had never grasped what Noah now lived by. Some structures are beyond repair. Some cores are too fractured to rebuild. Brandon's collapse wasn't collateral damage. It was a necessary purging of a threat to everything Noah valued. As he turned to return to the celebration, Noah caught his own reflection in the booth's modest mirror. The scars lining his face were permanent now. He ran a finger across one, remembering the fire, the betrayal, the moment the world cracked open. The wounds had stayed, but so had the hard-won truths about strength, about what truly holds under stress, in construction and in character. Noah Sanders had stepped into the flames and emerged not just whole, but changed. Like the Carson itself, his transformation wasn't recovery, it was evolution. He had restored far more than a building. He had restored himself. Exactly 1 year later, Noah stood outside a courtroom, awaiting the final ruling in his drawn-out legal clash with Brandon Davis. Though still behind bars, Brandon had launched a surprisingly aggressive legal counterattack via a high-priced team of lawyers. The suit claimed Noah had orchestrated an elaborate plot to smear Brandon's name and tank his business, citing forged documents and manipulated media. The accusations were flimsy, but the legal process had drained Noah's time and energy. "Ready?" came the voice of Patricia Delgado as she approached him in the courthouse hallway. "Absolutely," Noah said. "How's the outlook?" he asked. Patricia gave a small, confident smile. "They filed their final argument yesterday. It's weak. Just recycled points the judge has already thrown out. I don't see it swaying her." Judge Elena Morales had taken over after Judge Reynolds was disbarred. Known for her strict ethical standards and no-nonsense approach, Morales had repeatedly denied Brandon's attempts to delay or conceal evidence. "And what about our counterclaim?" Noah asked. "It's filed and rock solid," Patricia assured him. "If she dismisses their case, our claim for damages and fees goes live automatically." As they stepped into the courtroom, Noah gave a quiet nod to Tiago and Sophia seated in the gallery's front row. Behind them sat Aiden and Austin, now teenagers, keenly observing their father's battle. With Patricia's okay, Noah had brought them along to witness this chapter as part of their education. Across the aisle, Brandon's legal squad waited. 3 attorneys in immaculate suits, led by Maxwell Porter, a ruthless litigator flown in from Chicago. Porter had been feeding the media a series of increasingly outlandish assertions, claiming that fresh evidence would not only exonerate his client, but also uncover Noah's supposed true nature. As Judge Morales entered the room and the court session commenced, the atmosphere grew charged with tension. After dealing with a few procedural matters, she fixed a stern gaze on Porter. "Mr. Porter," she began, her tone composed and firm, "I've reviewed your latest submission. Your arguments are merely a reiteration of those previously presented, offering no substantive new insights." She paused briefly, then added, "Is there anything of real substance that you wish to present before I render a decision on Mr. Sanders's motion to dismiss?" Rising to his feet, Porter exuded a blend of theatricality and confidence. "Your Honor," he said, "we have recently uncovered crucial evidence that fundamentally alters the trajectory of this case. With your permission, I would like to introduce a new witness whose testimony will demonstrate that Noah Sanders orchestrated a deliberate and malicious attack against my client." Patricia sprang to her feet immediately. "Your Honor," she objected, "this is precisely the type of last-minute tactic your court has previously warned against. This witness was neither disclosed during discovery nor mentioned in any of the case filings." Judge Morales's frown deepened. "Mr. Porter," she said sharply, "you are fully aware of the procedural requirements. Who is this witness, and why are they only being introduced at this late stage?" "Victoria Sanders, Your Honor," Porter responded. "She is the defendant's ex-wife and one of the individuals harmed by his campaign against Mayor Davis." A murmur of surprise rippled through the courtroom. Noah maintained a composed exterior, though he felt Aiden and Austin stiffen beside him. Patricia leaned in slightly, whispering, "This wasn't anticipated." Victoria had previously refused to take part in any depositions. Judge Morales paused for a moment, then said, "While I am not inclined to allow surprises at this stage, I will allow limited testimony for the sake of a complete evaluation. But the defense will be granted the full opportunity for cross-examination. Bring in Mrs. Sanders." Victoria entered the courtroom with polished poise, dressed in a new, tailored navy suit, an outfit that likely exceeded the budget of her boutique, which was already struggling financially. She kept her gaze fixed forward as she took the stand, carefully avoiding looking at Noah or the twins, and was sworn in. Porter began his questioning, skillfully guiding her through a narrative clearly prepared beforehand. She depicted Noah as manipulative, controlling, and unable to move on from their failed marriage. "Mrs. Sanders," Porter asked, "how did your ex-husband respond when he learned of your relationship with Mayor Davis?" "He became obsessed with destroying Brandon," she replied in a calm, measured tone. "He couldn't accept that I chose someone else, someone who had real ambition and vision, not just an attachment to the past." She went on to claim that Noah had attacked all of Brandon Davis's initiatives, particularly distorting facts about Project Waterfront to make the development seem fraudulent. "Much of the evidence used against Brandon was selectively manipulated," Victoria asserted. "He had a vision to revitalize Dark Hollow without compromising its character. Noah twisted the truth to ruin him." As her testimony grew more exaggerated, Noah observed a subtle change in Judge Morales's expression, less interest and more skepticism. It was clear the judge was not buying into the performance. Her expression seemed to reflect growing doubt. Eventually, Porter concluded his questioning. "No further questions, Your Honor," he said. Patricia stood, exuding calm confidence as she began her cross-examination. "Mrs. Sanders," she began, "you've just stated that my client's alleged vendetta began after learning about your relationship with Mayor Davis. Could you tell the court exactly when that relationship started?" Victoria hesitated, a slight crack in her composure. "I don't recall the exact date." "Was it before or after you made your dramatic divorce announcement at Anastasia's restaurant?" Patricia pressed. "The same event that led to second-degree burns on your husband's face?" "That was an unfortunate accident," Victoria responded evasively. "Dylan was trying to calm things down when Noah lost control." Patricia nodded slightly, not challenging the point but clearly noting it. "Let's discuss finances," she continued. "The boutique, Verity, it's held in trust for your children, correct?" "Yes, but I manage it," Victoria replied. "And your income comes primarily from that business?" "Mostly, yes," Victoria confirmed. Patricia produced a document from her briefcase. "Your Honor, I'd like to submit this bank record as evidence. It shows a $5,000 deposit into Mrs. Sanders's personal account just 2 days ago. The source? An LLC connected to Maxwell Porter's law firm." Porter shot to his feet. "Objection. This is a blatant overreach and an invasion of privacy." Patricia remained unfazed. "Your Honor, this payment goes directly to the witness's credibility and may explain her sudden willingness to testify." Judge Morales reviewed the documents. "Objection overruled. The witness will respond." All eyes turned to Victoria, who now appeared visibly shaken. "It was a loan," she said after a long pause, "for personal expenses." "A loan?" Patricia echoed, her tone skeptical. "Were there any signed agreements? A repayment schedule?" "We haven't completed the paperwork yet," Victoria admitted quietly. "Mrs. Sanders," Patricia pressed, her tone unyielding, "isn't it true that this so-called loan was, in reality, compensation for your testimony today? Testimony that directly contradicts statements you made under oath during your divorce proceedings?" "That's absurd," Victoria snapped, though her earlier confidence seemed to evaporate. Patricia produced another document. "Your Honor, here is the transcript from Mrs. Sanders's earlier deposition. In it, she confirms that her relationship with Mayor Davis began approximately 8 months before the incident at Anastasia's, and that she actively participated in planning the public humiliation of my client." As Patricia dismantled Victoria's testimony, highlighting the discrepancies between her current claims and prior sworn statements, Noah observed a noticeable shift in the courtroom atmosphere. The judge's expression darkened, clearly disapproving. Porter and his legal team exchanged anxious whispers, while behind Noah, he could feel the tension from Aiden and Austin, their discomfort palpable as they saw their mother's credibility disintegrate before their eyes. By the time the cross-examination was complete, Victoria was visibly shaken, her previously confident demeanor unraveling before the court. Judge Morales dismissed Victoria from the stand, her disapproval evident in her gaze. "Mr. Porter," she addressed Brandon's lawyer sharply, "this witness has not only failed to bolster your case, her testimony raises significant concerns about possible witness tampering." Her voice hardened as she continued, "I will be referring this matter to the district attorney for a formal investigation." After a brief pause, she added, "Furthermore, I am granting Mr. Sanders's motion to dismiss your client's complaint with prejudice. Mr. Davis's accusations are not only unconvincing, they constitute a gross misuse of the court's time and resources." Turning her attention to Porter's table, she declared, "The defendant is entitled to full legal costs, and I am imposing sanctions on your firm for misconduct that reflects poorly on this court." Porter attempted to interject, but Judge Morales silenced him with a decisive gesture. "My formal ruling will follow shortly. This session is adjourned." As the courtroom emptied, Noah remained seated, processing the gravity of what had just occurred. The twins approached him cautiously. "Dad?" Austin asked softly. "Is Mom going to get in trouble for this?" Noah paused before responding. "She made some very poor decisions today," he said thoughtfully. "There could be consequences, but that's not something you need to carry with you." Aiden's face tightened. "She lied. In court." Noah nodded gravely. "People often make reckless choices when they feel trapped," he explained. "Your mom's situation is very delicate." That was an understatement. Over the past year, Noah had deliberately distanced himself as Victoria's life slowly crumbled. Her boutique had been hemorrhaging money, and former allies had pulled away. Her partnership with Brandon had soured, especially as his legal appeals failed and his prison sentence grew longer. Meanwhile, Dylan had disappeared entirely, now mired in his own legal troubles. Patricia approached the small group, her satisfaction evident. "That could not have gone better if we had planned it ourselves," she remarked. Porter overreached completely. "Do you think the DA will follow through?" Tiago asked, joining them. "Very likely," Patricia responded. "Morales doesn't make empty threats. Porter's firm could face serious disciplinary action, and Victoria might be charged with perjury." Noah stood up, a firm decision in his mind. "I'm going to speak with the district attorney. We'll request reduced penalties for Victoria in exchange for full cooperation on Porter's role in this." Patricia raised an eyebrow. "That's an unusually generous move." Noah glanced over at his sons, who were silently observing. "It's not about generosity," he explained. "It's practical. A high-profile prosecution would only cause more damage, and Victoria, she's already lost everything that mattered to her." His voice was steady, devoid of anger, just a blunt statement of fact. Her reputation, financial stability, personal connections, and even her role as a mother had all been steadily eroded, some of it due to her own choices, some the result of Noah's deliberate legal strategies. Outside the courthouse, reporters crowded the steps, ready to pounce. Noah declined to comment, directing the questions to Patricia as he quietly led the twins toward the waiting car. "What happens now?" Aiden asked as they drove away. "Now that the lawsuit is dismissed, that chapter is closed," Noah explained. "Cornerstone's legal position is strong again. Brandon's attempt to retaliate has completely backfired." "But what about Mom?" Austin asked, concern evident in his voice. "If she's in real trouble." Noah could see the internal conflict on both boys' faces, the frustration over their mother's betrayal, yet still a deep loyalty to her. "I'll make sure whatever happens is fair," he reassured them. "She's responsible for her actions, but that doesn't mean she deserves to be crushed. She's still your mother, and that relationship deserves some respect, even if she didn't honor it herself." The twins absorbed his words thoughtfully. Over the past year and a half, under Noah's guidance and with the support of Dr. Winter, they had grown emotionally and mentally, learning to deal with complex trauma, building inner strength, and developing their own moral compass. That afternoon, Noah kept his promise and met with District Attorney Elena Vasquez. In her office, she outlined the stakes. "We're looking at charges of perjury, possible witness tampering, and conspiracy," she said. "Porter's in a deeper bind than Victoria. His conduct is already under review by the bar." "I'm proposing an alternative," Noah responded. "Victoria fully cooperates and testifies about Porter and Brandon's collusion. In exchange, she pleads guilty to a misdemeanor, probation, community service, and therapy." Vasquez regarded him with interest. "That's a much lighter deal than I expected, considering how fiercely she fought against you. Why take her side?" Noah's reply was calm, measured. "She's still the mother of my children," Noah said calmly. "Their well-being and security come first, no matter the situation." However, things were far from straightforward. Noah had never intended to destroy Victoria. His goal had always been to make sure she faced just enough consequences for her actions. A felony conviction, however, would go too far. But court-ordered therapy? That was something Noah could get behind. It fit perfectly into his long-term strategy. By the end of the day, everything had fallen into place. Victoria had accepted a plea deal, agreed to cooperate with authorities, and was set to begin an intensive therapy program. Her testimony would strengthen the case against Brandon, potentially extending his time behind bars. When Noah returned home, Tiago was waiting with important news. "Dylan Port was arrested this morning in Cincinnati," Tiago reported. "Federal charges, wire fraud and money laundering. Looks like the anonymous tip we sent in hit its mark." Noah gave a subtle nod, acknowledging the update. Another part of the plan was in motion. "Who's representing him?" Noah asked. "Public defender. His accounts are frozen, and no one else is stepping in to assist him," Tiago replied. "Keep a close watch on him," Noah instructed. "If he reaches out to Victoria or tries to link her to any of this, we'll need to take action." With that task checked off, Noah joined his sons for dinner, a routine he kept to ground the family amidst the turmoil. As they ate, the tension of the day's legal battles lingered in the air. "I keep thinking about what you said," Austin said, his voice thoughtful as he picked at his plate. "About Mom needing consequences, but not just to punish her. How do you know where to draw that line?" Noah took a moment to consider the question carefully. True consequences lead to change. The unnecessary ones just cause harm. It all comes down to the intention behind them. Aiden leaned forward, intrigued. "But how do you know it's not just revenge?" "I ask myself that all the time," Noah admitted. "I try to be honest about my motivations. I look at whether what I'm doing is building something better, not just for me, but for everyone involved. And when I realize it's not, I change my approach, like I did with your mom." The twins exchanged a glance, trying to process the complex moral reasoning. "In the work of restoration," Noah continued, "sometimes you have to remove what's beyond repair. Other times, the damaged parts can be fixed, reinforced, and made stronger than before." "So, people are like buildings?" Austin asked, eyebrows raised. "More than you might think," Noah replied. "Both need solid foundations, regular maintenance, and sometimes major repairs. Both can appear fine on the outside while hiding deep flaws beneath, and both can either be rebuilt or torn down, depending on who's doing the work." Later that night, after the boys were in bed, Noah received an unexpected call from Bernard Levine. "Did you see the news?" Bernard asked, cutting straight to the point. "I've been with the boys. What's going on?" "Richard Walters, found dead in his apartment. Looks like a suicide." Noah froze, the gravity of the news settling in. "There was a note," Bernard added. "He apparently confessed to additional financial crimes tied to Project Waterfront." Walters had been a critical witness against Brandon. His testimony had been crucial to several ongoing investigations. The timing of his death raised alarm bells. "Suspicious," Noah said quietly. "Very," Bernard agreed. "I had lunch with him just last week. He was in good spirits, talking about his daughter's engagement, mentioning starting a book once all this was behind him. "Tell Sophia to increase surveillance on the remaining suspects," Noah instructed after the call ended, "and expedite all contingency measures." Despite Walter's death looking like a convenient twist in Brandon's favor, Noah had anticipated such possibilities. Every piece of evidence he had collected was securely stored in multiple locations, with automated protocols in place to release it should any threat emerge against him or his team. The following morning, more developments came through. Patricia called with an update. "Victoria signed the deal," she said, "and her statement is thorough. She's completely turned on Brandon. She even seems eager to testify." "That's a shift," Noah observed. "Keep an eye on her financials. Have Sophia check for any recent messages from the prison." By the afternoon, Noah received confirmation. Brandon cut ties, Sophia reported. Their last conversation, he blamed her for the lawsuit's failure. He said she was on her own now, no more support. "He's tying up loose ends," Noah said. "Cutting off liabilities." "Like Walter's," Tiago muttered grimly. "Possibly, which means we need to act quickly." In the days that followed, Noah executed the final stage of his long-term plan, the phase he privately referred to as the keystone. Like the last stone in an arch, this move would solidify everything that had come before it. He started by anonymously sending key documents to the federal prosecutors overseeing Brandon's case, records that exposed Brandon's ongoing control of his business empire through coded messages sent from prison. It was a blatant violation of his plea agreement and the final blow Noah had been holding in reserve. Cornerstone Restoration soon unveiled an ambitious growth strategy spotlighted by the strategic acquisition of several key properties within the previously thriving waterfront district. These acquisitions were part of a collaborative public-private partnership with the city, aimed at creating a groundbreaking historical zone that would support both the preservation of culture and foster sustainable economic progress. Of particular note, Noah orchestrated a confidential meeting with Judge Morales to propose a transformative idea, one that held the potential to reshape the future of Dark Hollow while addressing unresolved matters with those who had previously sought to undermine him. "You're suggesting something unprecedented," Judge Morales commented, after thoroughly reviewing Noah's detailed proposal. "A preservation trust with this level of authority?" Noah clarified, "This trust will ensure that the failures of Project Waterfront never occur again. By entrusting important heritage sites to a nonprofit managed by both preservation experts and local community members, Noah believed they could implement lasting safeguards that would survive political changes." "And your condition about Davis?" Judge Morales inquired. Noah responded calmly, "It's not a condition, it's a suggestion. Considering his ongoing legal issues, he's actually a fitting candidate for the restorative justice initiative you've been advocating. Instead of extended prison time, he could contribute through community service, performing restoration work that directly benefits the very community he once tried to exploit." Judge Morales scrutinized him thoughtfully. "This isn't about rehabilitation," he said slowly. "This is about reparation. You're making him rebuild what he once tried to destroy, under your supervision." Noah didn't argue with that assessment. "The most significant consequences often reflect the damage inflicted," he said plainly. 2 days later, Noah was supervising the restoration efforts at Cornerstone's latest project, the revival of Dark Hollow's original courthouse, when a notification from the Corrections Department pinged on his phone. New charges had been filed against Brandon Davis, and his privileges had been revoked amid further investigations. His security classification was also upgraded. The intricate framework of Noah's carefully laid plan had now come to fruition. A self-sustaining system, each component strengthening the others, designed to endure. Much like the historic structures he dedicated himself to restoring, this too was a creation, one born from betrayal, but destined to survive long after the scars had healed. That evening, as Noah reviewed architectural plans in his study, a soft knock at the door drew his attention. Aiden stood on the threshold, composed but hesitant. "Is everything all right?" Noah asked, noticing the seriousness in his son's expression. Aiden entered and quietly closed the door behind him. "I found something today, while going through old stock in Mom's shop basement." He placed a worn notebook on the desk. "It's her journal, before everything changed. I probably shouldn't have read it, but there were some pages with our names on them." Noah looked up, sensing his son's internal struggle. "Why bring it to me now?" Aiden's voice softened. "Because it changes how I see things. She wasn't just upset with you, Dad. She writes about the pressure to be perfect, how she felt trapped, about needing to break something to feel real again." Noah opened the journal to one of the marked pages, reading Victoria's raw confessions. Her words acknowledged the love and stability Noah had given her, the life they had built that others admired, and yet she still felt unsettled, as though no achievement or affection could ease her discomfort. "She hated what she did," Aiden said, his voice breaking. "She knew it was wrong to drag us into it, but she couldn't stop herself." Noah closed the journal, his mind racing. The events hadn't changed, but the context now carried new meaning. His once clear-cut view of betrayal was now evolving into something more complex. "Thank you for showing me this," Noah said to Aiden. "Do you think she'll ever be okay?" Aiden asked, hope lingering in his voice. Noah answered slowly, "I think some damage can be repaired, if the foundation is still strong. Her court-ordered therapy might help her uncover those cracks." After Aiden left, Noah sat quietly, holding the journal. Victoria's inner turmoil didn't excuse her actions, but it revealed a deeper pain that had gone unnoticed, a fracture in her that had never been addressed. This understanding didn't change his path forward, but it added a layer of nuance, a space for empathy where judgment once reigned. As a master restorer, Noah understood that neither buildings nor people collapse from a single flaw. True restoration embraced the complexity of what came before. It didn't erase it. By month's end, Noah's strategy had come together flawlessly. The city council voted unanimously to establish the Dark Hollow Heritage Trust, ensuring the preservation of 37 historical properties under permanent protection. New federal charges were filed against Brandon Davis, based on evidence of illegal activities conducted while he was incarcerated. Dylan Port accepted a plea deal that would see him serve 7 years in federal prison. However, for Noah, the most significant outcome came when Judge Morales formally approved the Restorative Justice Program, appointing Brandon Davis as its first participant. 2 years later, on a crisp October day, Noah stood watching artisans at work, restoring the intricate cornices of Dark Hollow's City Hall. Among them, wearing a standard safety vest, was Brandon Davis. His former polished demeanor had faded, replaced by the weariness of hard labor. His former confidence had been replaced by the exhaustion of genuine work. 6 months prior, Brandon had been transferred from federal custody to a halfway house in Dark Hollow. 5 days a week, he reported to various cornerstone restoration sites, performing strenuous tasks under constant supervision. He was learning to preserve the very town he had once tried to exploit for his own benefit. Noah visited the job sites regularly, observing the progress and taking notes with professional detachment. His interactions with Brandon were minimal. They spoke rarely. Noah's plan required no direct confrontations, no accusations spoken aloud, nor any displays of dominance. The meaning was embedded in the details themselves. Brandon Davis, who had once stood as the undisputed leader of Dark Hollow, now found himself working with his hands, restoring the town's landmarks under Noah Sanders's direction. "Mr. Sanders?" The foreman stepped forward, holding a report. "The structural report you requested is complete." Noah gave a short nod, but did not acknowledge Brandon with a glance. He flipped through the engineer's report, noting Brandon's gaze upon him. The older man's expression was complex, resentment tempered by acceptance, perhaps even a grudging respect. Later, as Noah drove to his next appointment. Tiago called with updates on their open cases. Victoria's therapist reports that she's been attending sessions regularly and participating actively, Tiago informed him. The boutique's performance is improving slowly under the new model you set up. She's also asked for additional time with the twins. If Dr. Winters agrees and the boys are receptive, I have no objections, Noah replied. His answer reflected a subtle shift in his philosophy. He had come to realize that total separation wasn't always the best way to rebuild. Sometimes fractured parts could be reintegrated, carefully and with the right support. Victoria's interactions with the boys were now a carefully monitored trial of re-entry. Although she would never regain Noah's trust, he believed a carefully managed maternal bond could benefit Aiden and Austin as long as firm boundaries were maintained. And Dylan? Noah inquired. 3 months into his sentence at Oakdale, Tiago replied. No contact with family or anyone from his past. Good. Keep monitoring him, but ease up on the frequency, Noah instructed. When Noah arrived at Dark Hollow Academy, a private institution founded in 1887 and the first major restoration Cornerstone had undertaken 15 years ago, he found Austin waiting, clearly impatient. You're late, the teenager remarked as Noah parked. 5 minutes, Noah corrected him. City Hall ran late. Did you see him? Austin asked, his tone more curious than accusatory. Noah didn't pretend to misunderstand. He was on the cornice. The foreman said the work passed inspection. Austin took in that information quietly, his demeanor reflective. At 16, the twins had matured into thoughtful, resilient young men, carrying the weight of their family's history without allowing it to define them. It feels kind of strange, Austin admitted. Seeing him fixing things around town. People talk about it at school. Does that bother you? Noah asked. Austin thought for a moment before responding. Not really. It's like making him repair what he tried to ruin. It feels like justice, but not harsh. That's a fair perspective, Noah said, impressed by his son's insight. They were at the academy for Austin's admissions interview into its architectural program, a prestigious track focused on heritage preservation and structural design. While Aiden had leaned toward environmental science, Austin had become increasingly drawn to Noah's profession. Nervous? Noah asked as they sat outside the director's office. A little, Austin admitted. But I've been going through Bernard's textbooks, and the portfolio we put together is strong. The interview exceeded Noah's expectations, with Austin demonstrating both solid technical knowledge and genuine enthusiasm. On the drive home, Noah experienced a sense of pride that surpassed his typical professional satisfaction. This, he realized, was true restoration, building a future for his family from the ruins of past betrayals. Later that evening, an unexpected visitor arrived at the Sanders household. Melissa Lawson, the heritage officer who had once extended kindness to Noah during the Carson inspection, appeared with an official-looking envelope in hand. I could have dropped this off tomorrow, she said as Noah let her in, but I thought you might want to see it in private. Inside was a formal announcement. Noah had been selected to receive the National Preservation Trust Lifetime Achievement Award, the highest honor in his field, typically reserved for individuals with far more years of experience. The committee's decision was unanimous, Melissa added. Your work with the Dark Hollow Heritage Trust is being studied across the country. 3 other towns have already adopted your model. After she left, Aiden emerged from his room, curious about the visitor. When Noah shared the news, he expected praise. Instead, Aiden asked a question that took him by surprise. Are you happy, Dad? Like really happy, not just successful? The question struck deeper than expected. Noah had been so focused on achieving justice and restoring stability that he had rarely stopped to assess his own happiness. He started, then paused for a moment of reflection. I'm proud of what we've rebuilt. The safety and foundation we've put in place. That's not quite the same as being happy, Aiden said softly. No, Noah agreed. It's not. Perhaps, Noah thought, that was the next challenge to face. The following morning, during his regular walkthrough at the City Hall site, Noah observed Brandon carefully working on a detailed molding. His craftsmanship showed noticeable improvement after months of steady effort. For the first time, Noah made his way toward him and spoke directly. "Your technique has improved," he said, his voice steady and measured. Brandon's gaze lifted unexpectedly, surprised by the sudden shift in conversation. "I had a great mentor," he remarked after a brief pause, his head nodding toward the foreman. "Tougher than any professor I ever had." A heavy silence lingered between the two men, both bound forever by past betrayals, heartbreaks, and the painstaking process of rebuilding what was lost. "Why this?" Brandon finally inquired, gesturing toward the team he now worked with. "You could have left me to rot in federal prison. Why bring me back to restore the very systems I once set out to destroy?" "Because tearing things down is the easy part," Noah answered, his voice calm and measured. "Building something that endures, that takes real effort. I needed you to see that," he added. Brandon studied Noah, searching his face for any trace of smugness or vengeance, but all he found was an expression of quiet confidence. "So, have I proved your point yet, Noah?" "That's not for me to say," Noah responded. "The work will speak for itself. These buildings will outlast us all, thanks to the care they're getting now, even from hands that never intended to contribute," Noah said, beginning to walk away. As Noah turned, Brandon called after him. "You know what's hardest?" he asked, his voice strained. "It's not the work, or even the humiliation. It's watching you succeed, watching you piece everything back together, better than it was before, while His voice faltered, words failing him. "While you come to terms with the cost of choosing destruction over creation," Noah finished with a quiet certainty. "That's always been the difference between us. I built with permanence in mind. You built for the quick gain." As twilight settled over Dark Hollow, casting a soft golden light across the town, Noah took a solitary walk. He passed the Carson Theater, its marquee now beautifully restored. He walked by Anastasia's, the place where everything had unraveled for him, before heading to City Hall, where Brandon now worked to rebuild the very structures he had once aimed to erase. Noah's phone buzzed in his pocket. It was a message from Victoria. "The boys mentioned Thanksgiving. I know it's early, but Dr. Winters believes a family dinner could be helpful. Would you consider it?" The message was a test, a measure of how far Noah had come. 2 years ago, he would have dismissed it outright. 6 months ago, he would have scrutinized it for hidden motives. Now he paused to think, not for Victoria's sake, but for Aiden and Austin, who deserved a chance to mend their relationship with their mother. "We'll discuss it with Dr. Winters and the boys," he replied. By the time Noah reached the riverfront, a place once intended for radical change under Project Waterfront, the town had settled into a calm quiet. Gone were the plans for luxury condos and trendy boutiques. Instead, the historical buildings remained intact, preserved by a trust Noah had established to ensure their survival. Sitting on a bench by the water was Bernard Levine, as if waiting for him. "Evening stroll?" Bernard asked, glancing up as Noah approached. "Something like that," Noah nodded. "Melissa told me the National Trust Award came through yesterday," Bernard said, smiling. "Well deserved, though I imagine it means more to preservationists like me than it does to you." Noah chuckled softly. "Recognition has its place," he agreed, "but that's not the priority anymore." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the river that had sustained Dark Hollow for generations and would continue to do so long after they were gone. After a while, Bernard spoke again. "I got an interesting offer today," he said. The governor is starting a statewide heritage conservation program based on your model. They want you to lead it. Noah raised an eyebrow. A government position? More than that, Bernard replied. It's an opportunity to expand your vision, not just preserve a few sites, but thousands. It was the kind of opportunity that would have thrilled Noah once, an affirmation of his principles, a larger stage for his work, a chance to leave a legacy. But now, he hesitated. My boys need stability, he said slowly. They've had enough turmoil already. Understandable, Bernard said. But from what I've seen, those two are incredibly resilient. They may be your most important project yet, he added with a warm smile. Noah smiled faintly. You might be right. Later that evening, Noah sat with his journal, following Dr. Winter's advice to reflect daily on his journey. But instead of writing about achievements or strategic victories, he found himself capturing smaller, more personal moments. Austin's newfound passion for architecture, Aiden's curious question about happiness, and even his brief but revealing conversation with Brandon, which had uncovered feelings he hadn't realized were there. For the first time in a long time, instead of sketching blueprints or designs, Noah drew something else. A quiet scene of the river from Bernard's bench, flowing steadily, untouched by human attempts to control or alter it. The next morning, another message arrived, one that would again shift Noah's perspective. It was from Sophia. Victoria checked into a specialized therapy center yesterday, not court-ordered but her decision. After a breakthrough session, she recognized long-standing self-destructive patterns, some of which go back to her childhood. Voluntary? Noah asked. Entirely, Sophia confirmed. She had begun to cover her expenses by parting with pieces from her personal jewelry collection. This action hinted at something Noah had once deemed impossible, that Victoria might actually possess the capacity for self-reflection and growth. While it might not be enough to repair the damage done in their past, it could be the foundation for forging a healthier relationship with their children. Later that day, as he oversaw the final walkthrough of the courthouse renovation, a project that had taken months of meticulous effort, Noah unexpectedly crossed paths with Brandon once more. The former mayor had become a part of the finishing team, responsible for applying the protective sealant to the building's exterior. Last day on this job, Brandon remarked, pausing to set down his tools for a brief break. Next week, I'll be starting on the library project. Noah gave a small nod in acknowledgement. Your attention to detail on the ornamentation was impressive. The foreman commented on the improvement. Brandon's face shifted subtly, a blend of pride and lingering bitterness flashing across it. 2 years ago, I would have had no problem tearing this place down. Now, I can identify every architectural feature and explain its historical significance. Education is rarely free, Noah observed. Some lessons cost more than others, Brandon said with a wry smile. Did you know my supervised release ends in 4 months? I'm aware, Noah responded. The foundation you started, the one that offers restoration jobs to ex-inmates, the director mentioned a potential permanent position for you. Brandon squinted, sizing up Noah's response. Was that your doing? The offer reflects your growth, Noah replied, his tone neutral. What you do with it is entirely your decision. Brandon scrutinized Noah's face, looking for any sign of manipulation or hidden motives. Why would you want me to stay in Dark Hollow? So I can keep watching you succeed. I'm focused on the buildings, not your discomfort, Noah clarified. Skilled restoration experts are rare. The past doesn't change that. As Brandon returned to his work, Noah felt a subtle shift inside himself. The man who had once orchestrated Noah's public humiliation and left scars that would never completely fade was now just another piece in the ongoing restoration of Dark Hollow. Not forgiven, but accepted as part of the rebuilding process, with necessary boundaries in place. Later that evening, Noah sat down with Aiden and Austin to discuss Bernard's proposal for the statewide preservation project. It would require more travel, Noah explained. We might need to relocate to the capital at some point. I wanted to get your thoughts before I make a decision. The twins exchanged a brief, silent glance. Aiden spoke first. You should go for it, Dad. It's important work, the kind you've always believed in. What about your stability? Noah asked, concerned. We're stronger than you think, Austin replied with the straightforwardness both of the boys shared. After everything we've been through, we're not fragile anymore. Watching you rebuild your life showed us what resilience really looks like. Aiden nodded in agreement. Besides, I've been looking at colleges with strong environmental science programs, Aiden added. And I've been considering architecture school, Austin said. We'll be making our own paths soon enough. Noah studied them thoughtfully. They were no longer children in need of protection, but young men charting their own futures. The family bond they had worked to restore now seemed solid enough to endure, even as each of them pursued separate paths. There's one more thing, Noah said, before pausing. Your mother has asked for a supervised Thanksgiving. Dr. Winters believes it could help with your relationship with her. He watched their reactions carefully. Austin tensed, while Aiden appeared to consider the idea. She's really trying, Aiden said after a moment. I visited her last week before she started her treatment. It felt different this time, like she wasn't just pretending. I'm not there yet, Austin admitted. But I don't want to stop Aiden if he feels ready. There's no expectation for you to respond the same way, Noah assured them. Different parts of a structure need different amounts of time to be restored, each piece on its own schedule, based on its own damage. The following morning, Noah called Bernard to tentatively accept the statewide role, with the condition that the transition would prioritize his son's well-being. He also met with Dr. Winters to discuss organizing a structured and carefully supervised Thanksgiving gathering where she would be present as a neutral observer. As autumn gave way to early winter, Noah found himself reflecting more often. He thought not only about the work he had done, his calculated efforts to hold people accountable, but also about what those actions had revealed about himself. He had torn apart the lives of those who had betrayed him. He had poured his energy into restoration, crafting outcomes that felt more like the inevitable result of justice than revenge. He had rebuilt his business, his public image, and most significantly, his family, from the ashes of disgrace. Yet one aspect of that restoration still remained unfinished. There was a wound within him that had never fully healed, something that carried the weight of that night at Anastasia's, the visible scars on his face, and the deeper, more hidden scars that lingered in the quiet recesses of his soul. On the anniversary of the Carson Theater's reopening, Noah returned alone after hours. He moved through the newly restored space slowly, taking in every familiar detail: the framework, the beams, the foundation stones he had once carefully examined. In the grand lobby, he paused in front of the antique mirror he had salvaged years ago, the same mirror that had reflected the truth of betrayal on that fateful night. Now, it reflected a different man, a man transformed, not only by the burns that would always mark his skin, but by the strength he had cultivated through destruction. He had rebuilt his life like one of his projects, piece by piece, layer by layer. And while the scars would never disappear, the man who bore them had been rebuilt, fortified from within. He had undergone a transformation, becoming more resilient, steadfast, and unyielding than he had ever been before. Whether this change was a true evolution or merely a shielded emotional response was something that still eluded him. As Noah gazed into the mirror, lost in thought, the familiar sound of the theater's side door creaking open pulled him from his reverie. That entrance, used only by staff and those in the know, had just been breached. Turning, he saw Aiden and Austin stepping into the lobby. "Knew we'd catch you here," Aiden remarked. "You always show up on this day," Noah responded, his eyes scanning their faces with concern. "Is everything all right?" Austin held up a folder, its contents evident. "We've been working on something. A project of ours," Aiden added. The folder was filled with architectural drafts, rough but skillfully drawn, suggesting the hand of a capable designer. The blueprints revealed a concept: a community center constructed around the original facade of Anastasia's restaurant, a place that had closed its doors 6 months earlier after Howard Bryant retired. "We want to keep the front intact, but reimagine the inside," Austin explained, his passion for design clear in his voice. "Studios, community spaces, areas for workshops in traditional crafts, a place that serves the people of today. And we're calling it the Phoenix Center," Aiden said, his voice laden with significance. "A name about rebirth," he continued, "something rising from where everything once crumbled." Noah studied the plans with the sharp eye of someone who knew the field, assessing the layout, acknowledging the innovative ideas, and considering the challenges. But more than the design itself, he saw the deeper intention. His sons were striving to redeem a place marked by the past, transforming it into something hopeful and vibrant. "It's still in the early stages," Austin acknowledged. "We'd need real architects to bring it to life, but the vision is solid." "It's more than solid," Noah replied, a hint of pride creeping into his voice. "You've found a beautiful balance between history and functionality." "So, you'll help us pitch it to the Heritage Trust?" Aiden asked, his tone filled with tentative hope. "I'll do more than that," Noah said, his response immediate and firm. "I'll join you. We'll develop it together and present it as a team." The conversation flowed as the twins shared their vision while Noah offered practical insights. And in the midst of the discussion, it became clear, this was not just about design or legacy. It was deeply personal. His sons were offering him a way to heal, to transform a painful memory into something meaningful. In the weeks that followed, the Phoenix Center became the family's shared goal. Nights and weekends blurred as they refined the concept, tackled engineering challenges, and put together a professional presentation for the board. By the time Thanksgiving arrived, the family dinner with Victoria, strained but ultimately productive, took everyone by surprise. Thanks to Dr. Winter's calm guidance, the conversation remained grounded and honest. Victoria had changed. Therapy had softened her edges, cultivating a humility that no one had expected. Her words were measured, spoken with a newfound accountability. When Brandon's supervised release ended in February, he chose to accept a full-time position with the Restoration Foundation, staying in Dark Hollow by his own decision. Though the distance between him and Noah remained, the animosity had given way to a fragile but functional peace. Even Dylan, still incarcerated, reached out, requesting a visit. Noah's response was simple, yet firm. "Rebuild yourself first. The rest will come." By spring, the proposal was ready. When it was presented before the Heritage Trust Board, it drew more attention than anticipated. Every seat in the town council chamber was filled. Noah stood before the crowd and began speaking. "This isn't just about preserving a structure," he told them. "It's about honoring what came before while making room for what's to come." Aiden and Austin followed, speaking with conviction and passion. They outlined the design's advantages, the importance of preserving the historic restaurant facade, and the symbolism of transforming it into a space for creativity, growth, and community. When the vote came, the decision was unanimous. Construction would begin that summer, with completion set for the following year. As the Sanders exited the chamber, greeted with congratulations and handshakes, they saw a figure waiting by the door, Victoria. None of them had realized she was there. "I didn't want to intrude," she said quietly, "but I needed to see this, to understand." Noah exchanged a glance with his sons, alert and reserved, but not overtly hostile. They acknowledged her presence without feigning more than what they felt. "The Phoenix Center," Victoria murmured, as if testing the name, rising from the ashes of that night. "It fits." They came up with it, Noah said, giving credit where it was due. It's brilliant, she said earnestly. You've taught them well. An uncomfortable silence stretched between them, heavy with the weight of shared history. Finally, Victoria turned to her sons. I'm leaving Dark Hollow next month, she announced. My program suggests a fresh start. I've taken a job at a boutique in Charlotte. The twins absorbed this quietly, their faces a mix of relief and uncertainty. We'll set up video calls, she continued, and visits. Only when you're ready. Dr. Winter will help coordinate. She was determined to make it clear. She had finally come to understand why change was necessary and why everyone involved had to adapt along with it. Her eyes met Noah's for a brief moment, a quiet acknowledgement passing between them of the fairness in all that had transpired. The carefully orchestrated series of steps he had set in motion had ultimately brought her to a place of profound, enduring change. Best of luck in Charlotte, Noah said, his voice calm and measured, signaling an end to the conversation. She has my full support, he added, referring to Dr. Winters and the steps being taken to ensure the boys maintained communication with their mother. As Victoria left, Aiden turned to Noah, his perceptiveness as sharp as ever. You knew she was leaving, didn't you? I was made aware, Noah replied with composure. Her therapist suggested that a change of location would be beneficial for her recovery. And you made that change possible, didn't you? Austin asked, his tone more of a declaration than a question. Noah's slight smile answered without words. This final decision, arranging Victoria's departure, had not been born from bitterness or a desire for reconciliation. It was simply the inevitable conclusion to a long and complicated process. Neither of them could remain in Dark Hollow without constantly being reminded of the past. With the boys preparing for college, the moment for a fresh start was now. That summer, work began on the Phoenix Center. Noah took on his new position with the statewide preservation board, carefully adjusting his schedule to maintain his presence in Dark Hollow while fulfilling his obligations elsewhere. The twins, now preparing for their final year of high school, had matured into young men with strong principles, shaped by their family's history, but not defined by it. On the first day of work at the old Anastasia site, Noah arrived before anyone else. He needed to walk the land alone, one last time before the construction team arrived. He stood on the very spot where, in the past, he had been consumed by flames, both literally and symbolically, and felt no shame or betrayal. Instead, he felt a sense of closure. The process of renewal, both physical and personal, was nearly finished. The people who had once been involved in his undoing hadn't been destroyed by his actions. They had been redirected, transformed. His plan had never been about revenge. It had been about applying pressure at the right moments, in the right places. And in that calculated pressure, change had taken root. Above all, the family that had once been shattered beyond recognition had been pieced back together in a stronger, more enduring form. His sons hadn't just survived the collapse of their home and past. They had learned from it. Lessons in resilience, in the strength required to build and rebuild both physical structures and relationships. As Tiago and the crew arrived, Noah stepped aside, allowing them to begin their work. The Phoenix Center would soon rise, a fresh start rising from the ruins of betrayal. Its rebirth was a mirror of Noah's own journey, from victim to creator, from the wreckage of a shattered life to the architect of something lasting. The scars on his face would never fully fade, and neither would the memory of that night. But Noah Sanders, a master of transformation, had completed the most ambitious project of his life, restoring not just buildings, but the people who had once inhabited them. Some might view it as revenge, others might see it as justice. To Noah, it was something entirely different, a restoration in its truest sense, the art of turning brokenness into something stronger than it had ever been. True restoration, after all, isn't about pretending the damage never occurred. It's about acknowledging the breakage and using it to build something that can withstand anything. Our story has come to an end. What do you think about this story? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoyed the way I tell stories, head over to my channel and check out my other videos. May the force be with you. See you soon, my friend.